Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this County Commission meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call roll?
Commissioner Neil Younger.
Present.
Chair Nathan Liker.
Present.
Commissioner Michael Burgess.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, the order of business, we're going to have a few changes to our agenda. We're going to move agenda item number 7 until the individual shows up. And then we're going to add an item as number 12 for reclaimer discussion. Item 13 will have some discussion with Justin Craig over a new program. Item 14 is landfill fees. And item 15, a UT fee for the fire department. Okay. Next, does anybody else have any
No.
additions?
No.
Okay. Next, the prior minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look through those?
Yep, look fine.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Moving on to our consent agenda. Any questions?
I have none. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through G.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next, issues from people not on the order of business.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Please state your name.
Okay,
and
my
the-
name is Perry Hinman. I'm
Okay.
a resident of the city of Ellis. I'm a taxpayer in both the Ellis and Hayes school districts. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My comments are in reference to your vote for this resolution for an Ellis County library. I guess I'm requesting at this time that you guys consider tabling that vote until such time as the City of Ellis and their library board have a chance to discuss this, how it affects them, and also probably the schools and libraries in Ellis and Victoria. All these entities should have some input on this and whether they decide to go along with it or not. I guess full disclosure, my wife's on the school board, not school board, on the library board in Ellis, and I am not speaking for her, nor the board, nor the city of Ellis, just as a taxpayer. You know, this delay would allow them input in your guys' decision. And as a taxpayer, you know, I would like to know the mechanics of how this would work. In your resolution, things should be not real broad and maybe more specific. And, you know, like, I would suggest that if you have a Ellis County library, that you would have an independent board, not associated with the Ellis Library or the Hayes Library. And that these board members, I don't know how you go about doing that, if you get a representative from every taxing district, like a township or city, you know, representatives. I would suggest that not any employees of the Ellis or Hayes libraries would be a director of the Ellis County Library, or maybe even a board member. These are all concerns that I would think the rural taxpayers and other entities might have. Does the funding from the rural townships and districts that pay, like all my farm ground pays tax, some of it goes to Ellis District, some goes to Hayes, you know, would those funds just all be dumped into the Hayes Public Library, or would some of those funds and from those taxing districts go to Ellis or Victoria, to their public libraries? Or if Victoria case doesn't have a public library right now, go to their school library. Anyway, these are all questions I think need to be answered and maybe spelled out before a resolution is to vote on it is, and not have a you know, some of these specific deals, you know, how much could be that Ellis and everyone else wants to go along with this deal, but I think they need to know, you know, where the money's going and who decides. And then also, you may be of interest, just for knowledge, before you make these decisions, have a representative from this CKLS, the Kansas board that's entity that's served our county since the 1960s, come and talk to you. Anyway, in closing, this is a quality of life issue for Ellis, Victoria, and rural residents who depend on our small towns. Does Ellis need its own swimming pool, ambulance, police, even school district? Economically, maybe no, but quality of life says yes. Please don't make this, by rushing this, make this a Hayes versus everyone else issue. Take the time to let all the parties know how this will work before you have an input on voting for a resolution. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Okay. Moving on, monthly departmental report. Any comments?
I have none.
I don't have any comments on it.
Okay, I'd like to just highlight a couple of little details that have come out of the report. Dispatch handled 4,300 calls, which is slightly lower than January, but according to the number of days in the month of February, it still handled almost 15% of county residents calling through dispatch. Showing the charts, which I appreciate, Darren, on the rural fire, it looks like we're going into peak rural fire season and time, so look forward to an update next month on what we're doing as a county in preparedness. And then IT's been doing a bunch of work behind the scenes to kind of keep everything up and going for all of our employees and desktop and everything like that, so I appreciate all that. And one last little bit is the sheriff's department has handled over 1,100 calls for February, and the jail is at full capacity still, plus 6 out-of-county residents. Or inmates. They're not residents, they're inmates. So we're still housing 6 of them out of county. So we are above capacity again for, I think, probably the 18th month in a row. So those are just a few observations in our departmental reports. Thank you to all the departments. Okay. Next, moving on to a county library vote resolution. Brandon Hines is here to discuss it more.
Good morning, Brandon Hines, Hayes Public Library.
Morning.
Morning.
More.
Come back today, there's a drafted resolution after what I proposed last week. It's very simple language. I also wanted to just address a few questions that have come up over the last week, and if you gentlemen have received any questions, I'd be happy to respond to those as well. The first question, we haven't got a ton of feedback, but the first thing that people have been saying is they're very concerned about the Ellis Public Library and actually having a location outside of Hayes. And I, in any of the proposals I've made to the Ellis Public Library Board, to the City Council over in Ellis and here, absolutely, there needs to be a public library in Ellis. There's no intention of the Hayes Public Library being the only library in the county. Mr. Hinman's question about the independent board is a good question. I've received other questions about that. So this would be a board, it's actually already established in how you establish a county library board. It would be 5 members. I believe it's by statute. There would be a 5-member board, and it would be from the taxing district. So if that taxing district was outside the city limits of Hayes and outside the city limits of Ellis, it would be 5 members from that taxing district. If Ellis decided to opt in or Hayes decided to opt in, it would also include that taxing district. But the board would be appointed by the county commission, and that board would have the control over the budget, over contracts, whatever it might be. It's really hard to project what that future board's going to do in regard to budget or as regards to contracts, how the money would be broken up. It wouldn't really be for me to say as the Hayes Public Library Director. I hope that we'd have some influence on it based on the services that we offer. but it would be up to that board when it's created. One comment really steered into that, like limiting access to, again, Ellis, but also Victoria, and how important library services are. And I couldn't agree more. Library services to our rural communities is very important. Ellis already has a library. We think this change could actually increase their funding, increase their resources in the future. And then Victoria doesn't have a public library. The Hayes Public Library serves Victoria. So anything that benefits the Hayes Public Library at this point would benefit Victoria. We have, I think, 450 cardholders from Victoria. So it would absolutely help us to, we have our bookmobile over there. We go to the schools. We could extend that. Really, the taxpayers of Hayes are funding a big portion of that service to Victoria now, which is a reason why we're advocating for this change. Concerns about taxes going directly to the Hayes Public Library. I can't project what a future library board is going to do. I do think we need to talk about how this structure could work, but we can't sign that until a board is created to help establish that contract. The first step in this process is for the commission to put it on the agenda. And I think the taxpayers, the rural taxpayers who are funding right now the regional library system tax at $300,000 a year, that's who would get the say in this. And I think it's important to let them have a say in this decision. Hayes Public Library is in the city limits of Hayes. As it stands now, as we're presenting this, they wouldn't have a vote on this. It would be the people levying the tax. If Ellis opted out, then the taxpayers in Ellis, they wouldn't have a vote on this either. It would be the taxpayers outside the city limits of Ellis. I do look forward to more conversations with Ellis Public Library and the council. I think they absolutely need to shape this, but the first step is to get this resolution passed to give Ellis the decision. It's their decision. We can't make Ellis participate in this. We see some very positive impacts overall. So, do you have questions for me?
So we've had you talk and kind of follow it from last week a little bit. If we were to postpone this, say, and push this resolution for an agenda item maybe next month, a month from now, to allow opportunity for the public to come and maybe have more discussion on that, is there any negative or downfall to doing something such as that?
I think it gives Ellis Public Library and Ellis Board or City Council a very short time frame to, I think May is what we're looking at to make a decision. So it kind of limits their time frame to make that decision.
And you have been in conversations with the city council and the Ellis Public Library?
Yes, we presented to both of the city council and the library board. It was more of a conversation with the city council. The library board was, they gave me 30, 40 minutes to speak. It wasn't really a conversation. There weren't a lot of questions. I hope they do generate some conversation afterwards or follow up with some questions. But I've presented to them pretty much what I presented to you last week.
Okay.
I guess I just want to ask Mr. Hinman, did that answer a lot of your questions, or do you still have something that needs to be more clarified?
I think, like the library board in Ellis, they're basically a monthly meeting board. And they need to meet with the city. They may need to do investigation before their next meeting, decide whether they want to stay or go, or what they want to do. Maybe they have questions on it.
Would you mind stepping up to the mic and having a conversation up here? That way everybody can hear you.
Okay. Well, I just think they just need some time to decide whether they want to join in or opt out, and they need to do some investigation. Being a volunteer library board, they don't meet weekly, they meet monthly, and then they're going to have to investigate what they need to do to just make their recommendations to the city, and then the city is going to have to decide, and they may have questions, and there may be further questions on the structure of the taxing and the monies and where they really go before they make a decision. And I know, you know, a resolution probably has to be on a ballot. I understand it's 70 days. But, you know, we've been doing this other system since the 60s. I don't know what the big toot is to, you know, it makes a perception that we're being overrun, whether we are or not. You know, maybe you could put it on the general election if we can't get it done by the, you know, primaries. So, I mean, I think, you know, I can't speak for the city of Ellis or the board, but as a citizen, I want to make sure it's done right, the taxpayer, and I think as far as Ellis, I know they need time to figure out what they want to do.
I guess I just, when I visited with Mr. Hines, that all along, and you know, I own property over in Ellis and other places, and that our taxpayer dollars were going to a different county, so that kind of put the flag up to me. So that's
Sure.
a concern for me.
I understand that. I mean, and, you know, Ellis County does other things like that, you know, High Plains
Absolutely.
Mental Health, you know,
Sure.
where it's a, you know, we're paying these other people for a service, and maybe we want to opt out and we can retain more money. But I think the mechanics of that needs to be spelled out before we just jump in.
Any comments, Mr. Hines?
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I think the process is spelled out. The county commission passes the resolution, and then the city of Ellis and the Ellis Public Library Board, they have to opt in. That's the way the formation statute is written. If not, they're automatically excluded. So they still have the decision to make. I think putting it to the county, even if this ultimately fails, the education piece is very important. This is a very complicated issue, and it's something that people they lack complete awareness. So during this process, this education piece is going to come together. I think the challenge of it, the structure is hard beyond you create a library, you levy a tax. We can't do anything much more than that until it's passed in August. One concern about the general election is if we wait till the general election, we lose another year. It's a 2-year tax levy requirement before you can withdraw. If you wait until the general election, then your budget process is already passed. And so that means that if this were to pass, it would be probably January of 2028, in my interpretation, before the tax would be withdrawn. Again, that tax is $300,000 a year. $200,000 is going back or is staying in the system. It's not coming back to Ellis County, and as I showed last week, that's going to grow as valuations continue to increase in Hayes and Ellis County. That's going to continue. That disparity is going to continue. The system has already discussed their intention they passed a resolution or a motion to reduce the Hayes Public Library funding. So by 2027, it's going to be close to $70,000 as opposed to about $100,000 now. So it's going to be about $250,000 a year. Again, the county commission is not passing a resolution to form a county library. They're simply putting it to a vote by passing this resolution.
Okay. Thank you. And there was no intent for the Hayes Public Library to oust Ellis?
Absolutely. I live in Ellis. The quality of life issues that Mr. Hemmons spoke to, I completely agree with. I think they need to help create this vision and how we can, and one thing I didn't share was the school districts is another question that Mr. Hinman talked about. No, those tax dollars for the school districts or the two districts, it doesn't work like that. The county tax that's being levied now in rural Ellis County, it's for libraries, it's all going to CKLS. That's separate from the school district tax. What this would effectively do is in the future, we would no longer, the rural Ellis County taxpayers would no longer have to send that tax to Ellis County. Local board, who is elected of local people and within that taxing district, they would have control over those funds and how the library operates. So it would actually give them more control over the funds that are generated by their taxes.
Okay.
Commissioner Burgess?
So a couple of questions that have been asked me this week, kind of answering like how would this look. So I want to, digital services, so like Hoopla, Canopy, I'm not sure what other digital services Hayes provides, Ellis provides. Does CKLS provide those services? Or are the libraries being funded and then they decide what services they want to provide?
That's a great question. It's very complicated. CKLS is providing some of those services. So CKLS there's two different services you mentioned. Hoopla is one of them, and then the other one is Overdrive, or Libby if you use the app. Hoopla is a cost per circ model. And so that means every time somebody checks out on that system, it costs about $2. I had those numbers last week for how much the Hayes Public Library puts into those. So the Hayes Public Library, just to Ellis residents, last year, we circulated over 2,000 Hoopla items. That's $4,000 that the Hayes Public Library put in. Last year, the CKLS gave the Hayes Public Library $5,300 for Hoopla. Again, that was just for Ellis. We spent over $100,000 on Hoopla from the Hayes Public Library. So $5,300 was from the system. The rest came from the taxpayers of Ellis, or excuse me, of Hayes. CKLS has said they are going to eliminate Hoopla. So after, I believe, this year, they're eliminating Hoopla. So no more money from the regional library system. This is a big part of our issue, is that what are we supposed to do as the Hayes Public Library? Are we supposed to continue to offer this service to people outside of our taxing district? Now, we've always extended our services to everybody outside of our taxing district, but at some point, it's a real disservice to the taxpayers of Hayes to keep offering that service whenever there's not a return from the system. Libby is, and Overdrive is the other one. They do provide that service as well. The system does provide support. I can't remember the amount of money it is they pay for the platform fee. I think it's $3,000 a year for our library, but the Hayes Public Library puts in, I don't want to throw out a number, but tens of thousands of dollars for that service also. So they wouldn't lose that if CKLS were no longer a part of Ellis County.
Digital services, I mean, I know, I use the library and people, and that's kind of what people are questioning, is it's not just the idea of a library going in and getting physical books anymore. It is being able to download on our devices from a public library, books, audio, games, and those things, and going into a library and having digital services available. But CKLS, as you said, is potentially cutting this out. So these rural libraries that depend more and more on allowing their residents to digitally access, they're going to be cut out by the same system that they're supposedly supposed to be funding to get these services. So that's a major concern to me, is that the services that CKLS is supposed to be providing can essentially be reduced without any action by the libraries. The other line is to that question with CKLS, is there a minimum standard that a library has to provide for them to say, yes, it's a library? Because they're funding, because that's a little bit of the question that people are, Hayes's library standard and what Ellis City provides, they're just different. Mm-hmm. But CKLS is funding libraries throughout 17 counties, and we're worrying about what their funding is for, digital services, but they may cut digital services out of this. So I'm wondering if CKLS has some minimum standard that an Ellis County library system could essentially establish, is saying, these are our standards we're going to fund. CKLS doesn't seem to have that standard, and that's, if you can address that.
Well, one of our biggest contentions with the recent change in the funding model is it doesn't reward digital services. It actually takes it all out. It's not about actual library services. The new model, and we've pushed this with the State Library Board. I think we made some traction last year on this, and we're going to hit it very hard in June whenever they present next year's budget, is their current funding model rewards for this intra-library loan, which is between their systems. Well, Hayes and Salina aren't a part of this. Even though we're responsible for 60% of the circulation in the entire county, the entire system, we're not a part of this. So what they do is they're rewarding libraries for being a part of this system. So what happens in reality, though, is you walk into a public library, there's not as many resources. They're being funded on the resource requests that are going out to other libraries. So you walk in, your child walks in, they don't have the book accessible, they put in a request for it. So this goes through a courier system. Most libraries in our system only have a 3-day-a-week courier system, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So they're rewarded by, it's going to be 5 days in many cases, especially if it's not a Monday when you make that request. So it's going to be 3 to 5 days, and you're not going to actually walk out of there with anything. This is what the new funding model rewards. And on top of that, they're paying the courier cost for this. So they're doubling up on this, and then it's a service that doesn't benefit Hayes and Salina. That automation, it's something we're not going to cede control to another entity when we have better professionals to offer this service and to control our own system. So we would never do that. So they're basically taking Hayes and Salina out with their funding. That's the biggest thing we can test, is they should be funding based on actual library services. And if the response for the system or the state is, well, it's okay, even though since the 1960s, the model is you share with everybody in the entire system, which is 17 counties. That's part of the deal. Now they're trying to say, because it doesn't benefit them, that, well, you can actually cut off services to people outside of your taxing district for digital resources. That's not what we want to do. The Hayes Public Library has built this patronage over decades, and that's the only thing we've got, is to quit serving people. We don't want to do that. That's the last thing that we want to do, because it's going to hurt real people. It's going to hurt people in Ellis, Victoria, and people outside. 25% of our circulation is outside the taxing district of Hayes.
And the other question that's been raised to me, and Mr. Hinman's kind of raised it too, this idea of contracts and what would that look like. So the Hayes residents and Ellis residents, city residents, again, they don't pay into CKLS. So
Right.
again, clarify, like, does Hayes Library and does Ellis Library, do they sign an actual contract with CKLS? Or are they just a funding mechanism where they just fund because we have Ellis County residents? Is there a contract, like a yearly contract?
So that's a great question. We've talked to the state librarian about this. There's not an annual contract, but back in the 1960s, libraries petitioned to be a part of the regional library system.
Okay.
I've never seen that petition. I've done a little digging on it. I have not seen that petition, and the state librarian doesn't have it either. It's never been produced, but that's where the agreement comes in, from the 1960s, and I've never seen that. So our county's already a member.
So likely the answer to the contract question is, if we had an Ellis County library system, again, they would not be contracting it, the library board then, like CKLS, would determine how they want to fund Ellis City Library, Hayes Library to fund, or the school libraries to provide the services, but there's not an idea of a contract. Oh, we're going to negotiate a contract between your board and our board. It's the board itself determines how they're going to disperse those funds. So theoretically, if that board, said, Hayes isn't providing the library services we want, either as Ellis, we're going to choose Manhattan, Kansas as our County Library. Now, that sounds absurd, but I'm just making this, the point is, the board decides who they're going to fund for the services. There's not, so Hayes, in a way, is also taking a risk here. You believe that ultimately this will help the taxpayers and you'll probably fund it a little more, and it should fund the city of Ellis more, but the board determines that.
Absolutely. The Ellis County Library Board would determine this. It wouldn't be the Hayes Public Library. Now, we do think there's,
And as you said, the Hayes City would not have a board member on it because they're not
No.
in the tax district.
no, not unless they
Those
opted in, which,
5 board members would be within the rural areas determining where those tax dollars are actually
Right.
going to be dispersed
right.
or
Right.
spent or however.
So I think I've shared this with the Ellis City, with the Ellis Library Board, and the best scenario here is for the Ellis Public Library to opt in. They would have board members, they would have more representation, they could cut their funding from their current 4.75 mil to whatever it ends up being. I would assume it's going to be much lower than 4.75 mil. Again, I can't speak for the future of what a board's going to do, but they would have control over that. If they opt out, yes, those 5 board members would be outside city of Hayes and Ellis. I do think you can contract, though. It would be a contract between the county library. Actually, the powers and duties of a board, 12-12-25 statute, section F, one of the powers is to contract with other libraries. And that also goes on to say other municipalities and school districts. So they would be able to contract with them. The challenge, it's not the challenge, it's the responsibility, is this library board would have to provide library services. And the Hayes Public Library is already doing that for the county. It just makes sense that they would continue. Again, the risk there is that's kind of where we're at with the system. If they continued to cut our funding, they've already committed to cut our funding, there's not as much risk for us at this point because our funding has been cut by over $40,000 a year. And so basically, we don't have any control over that. We're trading, hopefully, that the people that we're actually serving will act in our best interest.
Got another line of questions here, and I don't recognize everybody here. Is there somebody from CKLS here within the crowd? I don't want to disparage them. I thought somebody from CKLS was here last evening and didn't know if they'd be at our board meeting. So, Brent, you serve on the CKLS board, correct? As a board member?
Yes, the full system board.
So I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to ask you to answer them as a board member. The director of CKLS is, who's the director?
Gail Santee.
Gail Santee. The director of Great Bend Public Library is also Gail Santee.
It was until last year.
Until last year.
Right.
Okay.
They separated that position.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear, because that was one of my other concerns about CKLS is you got a director of a public library who's, depending on the funding of CKLS, was also the director of that, of the entity that was determining the funding mechanism. And so that kind of went to one of Perry's question is, can you have a director? And CKLS at one point was using a director within the same library system. My other line of thing is this with CKLS is the Great Bend Public Library is at 1409 William Street in Great Bend. The housing of CKLS is also at 1409 William Street. It's at Great Bend's Public Library, the housing of that system.
Correct. They're in the same library.
So there is no Central Kansas Library, right? So it's a system that is housed within Great Bend's system. That's kind of what I'm trying to draw here is at one point, as of last year, you had a director that was the director of the Central Kansas Library and the Great Bend Library. The system itself was located at Great Bend. So you go to Great Bend, it doesn't say Central Kansas Library System Library. It says Great Bend Public Library.
No, there's a big expensive sign that says Central Kansas Library System.
So that's where it's housed. So this idea, to me, though, for Ellis County Library System is, people are kind of, I think some of the comments are, you're going to close Ellis's library or going to underfund this or do that. The idea of this system is it just needs to be housed somewhere. It could be housed at the Ellis City Library, and they wouldn't change their name. It would still be the Ellis City Library, and they could be funded by the Ellis City the way they are now. the Ellis County Library System would just hold their board meetings there and just, it could be housed right here in this, in our forum.
Sure.
So this idea of, well, where are you going to put a physical library? It doesn't need to be a physical location that's not already existing. Just as CKLS is already, it's just a system, it's housed at Great Bend.
I think you need to be careful of calling this library a system. It's not a system. The regional library systems were established with separate statutes back in the 60s. This would be a county library. It would be a public library board whose responsibilities are to provide library services. How they do that would be there's a number of ways they could do that. They could establish a building, they could contract, but this is an actual library board with those responsibilities. Actually, I think that's part of the confusion over what is a regional library system. It is not a public library. They shouldn't act as public libraries. They shouldn't be having policies. The policies should be at the local level. So we just have to be careful that it would not be the Ellis County Library System to replace the regional library system. It would be a new public library.
It would be a new public library in the sense that the Hayes Public Library and Ellis Public Library would continue to exist and provide services as is.
That's the way that Hayes is going to approach it.
That's the only difference that would change is we
Right.
would cut some of the funding leaving the county.
Yeah, you'd cut all the funding leaving the county. You would keep all the tax
Taking
dollars.
that 300,000 instead of, again, going to this library system in Great Bend and getting 100,000 back essentially. Again, the board would take that 300, it's still, the taxing would be essentially the same. The 300,000 is now just collected within our own county board.
Right.
They determine how they want to provide library services
Right.
through the current libraries that we have within the county. Or again, if they so chose, they could, maybe they want to fund Plainville or Russell, because, we got Ellis County residents up north that,
Right.
maybe they go to Plainville, so the Ellis County Board would say, maybe we should fund them. Or we got residents over by Walker that usually go to Russell, so maybe within their decisions, they say, we give a little bit to Russell, but that decision now becomes
Right.
local to
Or
us.
the school districts.
Yeah.
I think the districts have a chance to receive some funding in this because I think we can share resources better than we do now. I think the school districts could definitely use some support for their libraries. I think if this resolution passes, that's the first thing we're going to do is start talking to them about what, ways we could envision supporting the libraries and increasing the funding for libraries. Again, we can't create a contract or anything before a library is created. Two things that I wrote this note. I didn't know if I was going to bring it up today, but I guess two things kind of prompted this. You ask about the structure of the regional library, or you ask me about my role as the regional library system board member. And then Mr. Hinman talked about like where tax dollars are going also, and kind of the idea that we do have a higher valuation here and that we do support things beyond our borders. And we totally agree with that. In fact, we support the general idea of systems. We think they do benefit some counties. We just think they're a really bad deal for this county. One thing I hear a lot from the systems is, well, California pays more taxes than Kansas. And I get that. We're not talking about national defense here. We're talking about library services. And the Central Kansas Library System is not a public library. They're not actually providing those services. And when you talk about representation, we don't have it. So California has 52 representatives in the House of Representatives. Kansas has 4. So they have much more influence in government. The structure that's in place now with CKLS does not allow that. So Ellis County right now has 388 as a member. USD 489 has a voting member. The Ellis Public Library has a member. I'm a voting member. And then our county appointee, Becky Rogowski, is a member as well. So we have 5 members. We put in $300,000 a year. In 2020, Rush County put in $73,000. I think with valuation changes, I think it's safe to assume that it's probably closer to $65,000 now. So last year, probably this year, about $65,000. Otis Bison School District has a representative. La Crosse School District has a representative. Otis Public Library has a representative. Bison Public Library has a representative. La Crosse Public Library has a representative. McCracken Public Library has a representative. And Rush County has their county appointee. So that's 7 representatives on this board from the county that puts in $65,000 a year, where Ellis County puts in $300,000 a year, and we have 5 representatives on this board. They are the ones who make the decision on where our tax dollars are going. So there's not representation for it, and it isn't benefiting our county.
Very well put. Okay. Well, is there anybody else that wishes to speak in the public that wishes to speak on this topic while it's open? Okay, seeing none. Well, gentlemen, before us, we have a proposed resolution. We can either move on it or we can table it. Thoughts?
I would like to move on it and let the, our citizens and our community make that decision, our taxpayers.
Mr. Burgess?
I'm going to agree with that. So I'll move to approve Resolution 24-05 to add the question of establishing a county library on the August primary ballot.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion before we cast our vote? Seeing none, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passed, 3-0. Thank you. We appreciate Mr. Hinman coming in to discuss this, and we look forward to the ongoing conversations with the Ellis Public Library, the City of Ellis, the School District in Victoria, and the City of Victoria, because this is, from the sounds of it, if we can get our local control over our dollars and maintain the system or better the system, I think is going to be a good move for the county. I appreciate everybody who's reached out to us. I know I had several emails, and I'm sure the other commissioners have fielded some as well. I understand it feels somewhat rushed on the resolution process, but I do believe we have a thought process in place to get this moved forward and make it right. So with that, thank you everyone on that topic. Okay. Next agenda item, we have our Rolling Plains Motor Speedway lease agreement.
Morning,
Darren.
Commissioners. Darren Myers, County Administrator. Before you this morning is an updated agreement between the Ellis County Commissioners and the Mr. Chris Sutton, doing business as KLS Promotions, who is the current leasee of the Speedway out of the fairgrounds. This is the first renewal of the lease agreement that was done 3 years ago, with some updates in regards to discussions that the commissioners have had in regards to the property, as well as Mr. Sutton, as well as some ideas from the Fair Board, or the Ellis County Fair Board, I apologize. So before you use the updated agreement, and there are some different items in there that are changed from last year to help recognize some of the improvements that have been made out at the fairgrounds on behalf of Mr. Sutton, as well as within those discussions of the improvements that Mr. Sutton has made, as well as that we will have some future discussions in the upcoming budget process to look at some improvements that are needed at the fairgrounds in general, not just the Speedway. And I guess for a quick preview of that is looking at some of the capital needs that are out there. I've asked the Public Works Department to give estimates on the what it would take to do some pavement upgrades for the parking lot of the Shank and Unrein buildings. And the fencing out there is getting to be in poor shape. We have some roofing issues on the concession stands at the RPM Speedway, some ADA accessibility issues that we're looking to get fixed, a cooler. I could go on and on here, or not on and on, but as you can tell, there are some improvements that are needed to be made out there that we'll discuss in our budget process for the following year. But with that, I've expressed those concerns, as well as Chris has expressed those to us, as some issues that he would like to see the commission approve to move forward within maybe this calendar year and into the future calendar years to make not just the Speedway a better facility, but also the fairgrounds. So with that, Mr. Sutton did drive up from the Hutcherson area this morning. If you would like to visit with him in regards to the agreement. The biggest part in there is recognizing that Mr. Sutton has spent tens of thousands of dollars of his own personal money, not necessarily as part of the business of the RPM Speedway, but safety improvements to the racetrack surface, the safety lights, wiring, some of the equipment audio equipment, amplifier speakers, etc., that were damaged in a storm were also replaced by Mr. Sutton. And he's looking, as part of this agreement, not necessarily to be reimbursed, but as part of his fees that he would pay Ellis County to lease, that we would offset those fees as a reduction of the amount that he has invested in the property, which is all listed within the agreement. So I guess with that, I stand or sit for questions, or if Mr. Sutton's needed to be able to visit with him.
Does Mr. Sutton have anything you'd like to discuss with?
I guess as most people, they would prefer not to come to the microphone to talk.
Chair's more comfortable.
Right?
Good morning, ladies, gentlemen. My name is Chris Sutton. Met several of you. Haven't met a few of the others, but pleasure being here this morning.
Good. Do you have anything you'd like to discuss with us at this time on the?
No, I mean, first and foremost, I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to run the fairgrounds out here, to run RPM Speedway. It's something I truly enjoy. I have a passion for the sport. I don't have a passion for the 2-hour drive back and forth, but I make it happen. Met a lot of great people in this area. Made a lot of friends. Have a pretty good relationship with the fair board out there, so that helps out. And I guess whenever I came in here, the facility just hadn't been maybe upkept to the standards that I wanted it to be upkept to. And I knew the funding wasn't there, to just say, hey guys, this is my first year here, let's throw tens of thousands of dollars at it and come to you guys with that. So I'm the type of person, whenever I write my name on something, I want it to be better at the end of the day. And as a race facility in Kansas, we have one of the best in the state. The facility, the bone structure of the facility is as good as there is in the state. Dodge City has a very fine facility, but it's all funded by tax dollars. It's not personal, private funding at all. But as far as a privately funded, we have about the best in the state. And I take pride in trying to make it better, maintain it, and try to take it into the future better. Whenever I came, my first year, I noticed that there was a lot of accidents on the racetrack that was just like, what in the world are these racers thinking? But the more I paid attention, the caution lighting out there. Now, when this track was built, I'm going to show my uneducated part of this, but I think 16, 17 years ago, it was put together with used parts from Jetmore Speedway down at Jetmore, Kansas. So the lighting that lights the racetrack up, the caution lights were old street lights, the green, yellow, red lights, etc. And whenever you start the races off during the daylight, they were really hard to see. So when a caution light would come out, the racers didn't see it. So I started doing a little bit of investigation, found I got with Whalen Lights. They're the lighting company that does all the NASCAR races with the LED flashings. And I put those lights up, and nowhere on that racetrack can you be and not see a caution light come on now. You could probably see it from downtown at night flashing. But it was just a huge improvement. That was $10,000, somewhere in there. But if I could eliminate a wreck and a need for Darren's crew to be out there with the jaws of life, that was my first thing. It wasn't anything other than a safety issue. The dirt, you know, as a farming community, most of us know, I mean, dirt, I call it dead dirt. It's just nothing will grow on it, nothing will do anything, and you can't do anything with it. And that was a big thing for me, the dust control, safety-wise, so I had to get new dirt. We put 140-ish semi-loads of dirt on the racetrack to try to make it a better facility. You know, there was just little things that we had to do. I'll be honest, I bought a score tower. We have an electronic scoring system out there that was from the previous organization that ran the racetrack. But I got a score tower from Dodge City Raceway that will tie into that electronics loop to where for a crowd, they can visually see who's leading, who's in second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. I've got it. I got a pole set up, and I've got the tower run out of funding. I mean, I'm just like, man, I am strapped. I can't get this thing put up. I wanted to have it up last year. And it set out in Victoria all winter long, and he's like, man, you need this out of my shop. But, so my goal is to get that up this year, for sure. The lighting that lights the track up at nighttime, I don't know how many of you have been out there at nighttime, but it gets kind of dark in places. So I went and bought 60 new lights to hang up around the racetrack. Again, that's about, I was kind of figuring it up on the way here. I can't remember. I spent somewhere around $8,000 on lights. But again, I couldn't afford to get them put up last year. They're sitting over underneath of a little awning so the hail or any kind of storms won't destroy them, damage them, etc. So that's another project I'd like to get those lights up there. It's just a safety issue and a crowd issue where they can see, but mainly a safety issue to where the drivers aren't going out of a bright spot, a dark spot, a bright spot, and then potentially having an accident there. So, but I have a vision. I want it to be better. Whether I'm here 3 more years, 10 more years, or 20 more years, the next person that takes it over, I want them to just tell everybody, man, it's just a turnkey operation. Walk in and it's ready to go. And it's really supported well. I wish I could get a better weekly crowd, but I think if we can pass this deal so I'm not making payments every week or every event, I know it's just taking money that I've already spent and adding it, or not adding it, but subtracting what I would spend in the future. But I could take that money and advertise more on the radios, local radios, etc., to try to get the crowd built more. But we have a couple of great shows. My next race coming up is March 29th, 30th, and 31st. Be a 3-day show. Be cars from typically 10, 12, 13 states. Canada usually supports with a couple 2 or 3 race teams. Fall Nationals in October, that's a huge race. 250-ish race teams from all across the country, plus Canada's there. It's a big impact to the county. I know the city sees a really big benefit on the deal because of people coming in town buying fuel and restaurants and hotels, and so there's a huge impact locally just by having the racetrack open and going. So again, I guess I'll just cut it short from there. I do appreciate the opportunity to operate the place, and I enjoy it. So, but any questions that you guys might have for me or concerns, or?
Have you seen some, with your improvements, have you seen an increase on usage, on teams coming in and people coming out?
What I see at the moment, just to be honest with you, is the appreciation from the racers and the fans. My goal whenever I took it over 3 years ago was to see an increase in my crowd at the end of my third year, because I knew it was going to take a while to start getting some of these improvements implemented. And at the end of my third year, into my third year, we was seeing a pretty good increase in my crowd. The car counts were starting to come up by last year. Yeah, 2023, RPM Speedway had the highest race team car count in the state of Kansas. So I believe I also had it in 2021 too, but 2022 Salina did, and then 2023 we had it back out here. So
Very good. Well, it shows that some of the improvements are paying off then.
yeah, I feel that they are. At the end of the day, whether I gain one more person in the grandstands, the improvements that I did, part of it, it was personal. I wanted to see it better, just personally. But two, the accidents, with the safety lighting and all of that stuff, and the racing surface, with it being so unpredictable with the old dirt, I'm not seeing the accidents. And if I could just save one person's $30,000 race car or a potential injury, that was worth the cost of what I did.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming up this morning.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Chris, I like the way you're saying the safety aspect of it. You took a big step when you stuck all your funding in there. Not only that, there was a lot of volunteer work from yourself
For sure.
and other people in
Absolutely.
the community, which is very, very appreciative. I mean, if somebody wants to volunteer, you've always got work out there. You've made some big steps from the first time you were here, so I
Thank you.
really do appreciate that. And like saying the lighting and stuff like that, yeah, it all takes, like you say, it takes funding, and
Yeah.
not only that, that would also help on our utility bills too. So
Right.
efficient,
Yeah.
better lighting. Yeah. So thank you again.
You bet. Thank
And
you.
not only that, talking with some of the Fair Board members, kind of floored me when I talked to a couple of them that it did come out of their mouth, we need the racetrack. So we need it. So we're in
Good.
the right direction. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just some kind of more housekeeping and audit and budgeting standards here. So you've put in this work here for the dirt work already for this race season, the lights and so this 33,000 is you've already put that in. So
Right.
we have, I guess, receipts for all that to show that. And then what you're requesting here is over the next 3 years, the 24, 25, and 26 race seasons, the race fee, the $450 and other incidentals, we're foregoing you paying that to offset that budget item. I'm just.
Correct,
clarifying
Mr.
all
Sutton.
that.
We kind of estimated based on the number of races that he has per year for the electricity charges, the speed, or the charges that we provide him, for the services we provide him for fire and EMS. And I don't think over those 3 years, Mr. Sutton will recuperate the full amount of the 33 that's listed in there. It possibly could if races continue to go good and have more races, more events out there. But it's pretty close to being equal.
That
over
was
3
kind of
years.
my lead-up question. If it doesn't essentially offset from a budgeting and an auditing standpoint, how do we reconcile that if after 3 years it's 30,000 and we're owed 3,000, or after 3 years he's actually paid us 36,000 and do we owe him 3,000 back? So from a reconciliation standpoint, how does
So we'll
that
keep
work?
essentially an Excel spreadsheet database of, as the receipts are in the agenda item, to total up to that amount.
Okay.
And per race event, if it's $400 for the race and say $300 for EMS and $100 for fire, we'll just manually subtract those off that $33,000 reimbursement number.
Okay.
And
I'm seeing here.
each year at the end of the race, instead of Mr. Sutton coming in and providing checks to pay for all the services, we'll sign off on a yearly invoices that these are the races, these are the bills, these are the credits, et cetera.
Okay.
And if the commission was like, I could, scan copies of that and inform the commission, send them to you via email so we can keep track annually. And then at the end of that 3 years, if it is, say 30 of the $33,000 that's listed, we can't speak of what the new agreement would look like in 3 years, but we could continue the agreement maybe for another year that recoups that remaining $3,000, or if in communications in the next couple years, I would suggest that if Mr. Sutton would make any future improvements to, put in a big jumbotron 60-yard TV screen out there for everybody to see. Maybe come back before the commission and we can work on an agreement as to some plans for that, just as we've looked at for the improvements to the fairgrounds themselves to ensure that we're budgeting capital funds properly to make the improvements needed for both the speedway as well as the fairgrounds themselves.
Yeah.
That's good. I see the invoices here. We got a 595-page agenda. I just hadn't scrolled down far enough to see the items, so that was kind of a redundant question on me. It is in here, the invoices. This makes sense to me. You're improving essentially a county assets, as you said. That sounds very appealing to me. You're trying to improve something that, hopefully it's more than 3 years from now, but at some point when you turn it over, it's turned over as a better asset, and somebody else is going to look at that and say, we can take that on and continue to do it. So I think this is a mutually beneficial thing to get the improvements into it. Again, you get to keep your dollars for the season and get going, so it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, there's just a few housekeeping items out there that, throughout the year, Darren's worked with me on pretty well so far. Just the daily upkeep of, fences and gates and all of that. That stuff just gets to what becomes overwhelming because it's ounces make pounds and pennies make dollars, and it just keeps adding up. My scale tells me that every morning I get on it. But, with the other projects, like I said, I'm going to have to get some help, not financially because I've already bought the lights, but I need to get them hung up on the poles, and so there may be some kind of a need there, maybe for some help, trying to get some lights hung up on the light poles out there, in the near future. So, and there's a lot of in-kind help in this community, people that have a truck or the tools, whatever. There's a lot of people that really want to see the place succeed. So, that'll be my first avenue, is to try to deal with some of my current sponsors and people that help out. But I really do want to get those new lights up, brighten the place up, and then get the score tower up in 2024 for sure. So.
Okay, very good.
I guess the other thing too, you said, Chris, that I forgot to mention that it does benefit county/city, that's what it's all about.
You bet.
They're coming in here, they're staying the night, buying fuel. It all helps.
Yeah, whenever I announced that I re-partnered with the Avid Hotel, she had 112 rooms that morning. Whenever I stayed there that night, and that morning I met with the new manager there, Yolanda, I believe is her name. She had 112 rooms, and 2 days later they was booked. As soon as I announced on Facebook, I'm not going to say my guys took all of the rooms, but in 2 days she booked 112 rooms. So there's a huge impact there.
Big impact.
So.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll move to approve the attached lease agreement with KLS Promotions LLC.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Chris.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to sign the contract real quick before you leave. Really? Okay.
Got a pen.
I get the contract.
I
I'll follow up with you this weekend.
I only have the back page, but I don't have a copy of it.
That's fine.
I'm just scrolling through to my next item here. Okay. Next, we have our 2024 compensation study review.
Good morning, Commissioners. Darren Myers, County Administrator again. Before you is the continued agenda item from last week's discussion in regards to the compensation study that both Jennifer and HR and I have been working with Heather Poorman from the Arnold Group, which you met with last week to go over the wage study, the pay rates, et cetera, in executive session. The next step of the process is to kind of go over how it all comes together in regards to not necessarily the salary adjustments, but how the compensation policy is in general. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Heather to kind of go through the PowerPoint slides with you.
Thank you. Good morning. My
morning.
name is Heather Poorman with the Arnold Group out of Wichita, Kansas. As Darren mentioned, Ellis County selected the Arnold Group to complete a compensation and classification study for all employees. The purpose of that is to make sure that we have a formal compensation plan as well as a policy to make sure that we're maintaining our fair and competitive salary ranges and that we're consistent with the market. And I'll tell you, I'm just kind of jumping around, so I'll let you flip through as you kind of see where I'm at. So the objectives of this study and the policy is to make sure that we obtain the highest degree of employee performance, morale, and loyalty through making sure that we're paying those employees fair and equitable. Also ensuring that the internal equity and that we have consistency between all departments and divisions of the organization, to ensure that we're looking at external competitiveness and making sure that we are staying up to market with all of those positions and what we are paying employees. We also want to provide an effective means of controlling payroll cost and salary expenditures. And this also provides a uniform method for establishing and applying salary rates and to facilitate the employment classification and promotion of personnel. So with the next slide, this gets into a little bit about the methodology, but is also talking about the policy that Ellis County will apply if approved going forward. So Ellis County uses an organized and systematic method of classifying jobs and administering wage and salaries to, again, ensure that pay levels are competitive and internally equitable. So the job analysis is a systematic process of determining the task that constitute a particular job and the skills and the knowledge required to perform it. From that job analysis, the result is typically a job description, and that job description is going to list all of the job's essential functions and the knowledge and physical requirements that are required to do that particular position. Any newly created job should go through a job analysis process first, and then a job description can be created out of that job analysis form, and that would be with the manager and the department head. Another important point to look at when you're establishing new jobs is making sure that that position, if that position is going to be hourly, which is non-exempt or exempt, with the FLSA standard rules. Go on. After the job descriptions, job analysis are set, the next step would be to do what's called a job evaluation. So with that job evaluation, basically what you're doing is looking at the job description, the purpose of the job, the knowledge required to do that job, and determining a point factor based off of 9 compensable factors. So we use the Hay methodology in order to score, for lack of better terms, positions. There's 9 compensable factors ranging again from knowledge, scope and effect, complexity, personal contacts, work environment, physical environment. What we do is take those 9 compensable factors that each has a very specific definition of what the factor is and what each point level means below that factor. So once a position has a score, the next step is to go out and do a salary study, and after that salary study, we create a pay scale. With that pay scale, the points that are derived from reviewing the job descriptions are then assigned a grade based off the result of the total of their score. So we have 15 grades. We have 10 through 15, 30 through 35, and 40 through 42. And again, the grades are determined by the point values that are determined after reviewing the job descriptions. We have the pay scale set, and as it's currently recommended, for grades 10 through 15, we have a spread of 18% from minimum to midpoint and midpoint to maximum. For grades 30 through 35, the spread is 22.5%. There's also a 7% progression for this level, which means that there's a 7% increase between the progression of the job grades. So a grade 10, for instance, would be 7% lower than the midpoint of a grade 11. On 10 through 15, I did forget to mention, but that grades 10 through 15 have a 5% progression. For grades 40 through 42, that spread is 30% between mid and max, and then the progression level is 15% for those grades 40 through 42. We'll talk a little bit about pay scale maintenance. Those progression levels and spreads are pretty much set right now. There's not a lot of need to go in there and modify those each year. We have a different method for being able to go in there and adjust your pay scale. We also have 4 departments, you'll see at the bottom, that have positions that a multiplier was created in order to address any hard fill positions or specialized or highly sensitive positions. And you can see those on the screen. With the salary structure, employee pay rates, so we've got a pay scale that's set from minimum to max. When you hire a new employee, typically you're going to bring that employee in at minimum. If they're new to the job, don't have any outside experience, then you want to make sure you at least bring them in at that minimum level. Employee pay rates that are in the middle of the pay range generally reflect employees who have mastered the basic intent of the job and that they're doing the job well. And employees that are near the maximum are your highly experienced employees who have a lot of tenure in the same position or similar position, and you'll see them towards the end of that pay scale. And we'll actually go ahead and skip to the pay scale one more. Thank you. So in setting our pay scale, grades 10 through 15 have 20 steps. So that means that after that 20th step, anybody grade 10 through 15 would max out of that level. Midpoint would be approximately 10 years for grades 10 through 15. Grades 30 through 35 have 25 steps. So it's a 25-step program before the pay scale max is reached, with a midpoint at 12 years, and grades 40 through 42 have 17 steps, with midpoint reaching in about 8 years. So as I mentioned, a new employee is generally going to be hired at the minimum level. However, with experience, other factors that may factor into bringing someone in above minimum, department heads are authorized to bring an employee in up to step 3. Anything over step 3 must be approved by the county administrator. Also, any pay changes for internal promotions, demotions, transfers must be approved by the county administrator. And after a successful introductory period, then it's recommended the employee be brought to the next step level, but they are not eligible for an increase during that introductory period. So I mentioned earlier about pay scale maintenance. You do want to do annual pay scale maintenance if the budget allows. So except in periods of economic difficulties, Ellis County will generally provide a COLA increase along with an annual pay scale maintenance adjustment. So as a component of the budget process, the county administrator will recommend a budget to the board for approval in December of each year. The commission has the authority to adjust or reduce the recommendation below to achieve expected budget performance. So all employees, including elected officials, the annual employee pay scale step adjustments will be made with prior budget approval from the county commission to be effective the second pay period of each year as recommended by the county administrator. The pay scale may be adjusted at a point in the calendar year for consideration of COLA increase. So the recommendation is to review the previous 3-year COLA average as referenced by the Social Security Administration. Typically, that would be no less than 1%. Again, if budget allows, a 1% minimum is what's suggested in order to bring your pay scale up, but no negative COLA adjustments would be recommended. Part of the policy as well, we have a promotion policy. So a promotion is going to be the advancement from one position in a pay grade to a higher pay grade. So we're recommending that promotional increases should be no less than 5% for employees that are being promoted 1 pay grade, 7% for 2 pay grades, and 10% for 3 pay grades, or if you have an hourly employee that's moving to a salaried position. We also have pay for working in higher classification. So this could be an hourly employee who is assigned to work in a higher classification on a temporary basis. It's recommended the period is not to exceed more than 90 days without prior approval from the county administrator. And employees working in a classification, and again, this is hourly employees, should receive 5% of the employee's current pay rate, And that's if they're working in 1 grade above. If they're working in 2 grade above, it would be 7%. And if an hourly employee is working 3 grades or more, or it's a salaried employee working out of classification, the recommendation is 10%. There are 4 different types of reclassifications: market adjustments, demotions, voluntary change of classification, and transfers. So market adjustments, it's recommended to do these 3 to 5 years. We do this for you during our first year as well. We'll go back and look at the market and make sure that we're still online with everything that changes. Any demotions or voluntary changes of classification will result in the employee going back to, let's say they're at a grade 30 and they're demoting to a grade 15, then in that 30, if they're at step 5, they would go to their grade 15 at a step 5. So there would be money taken away in the event of a demotion or a voluntary request to be reclassified. Any transfers, any change in assignment that employees move from one pay grade to another position, but it's in the same pay grade, there would be no recommendation for an increase at that time. So that kind of goes over the policy that we're recommending. As Darren mentioned, we talked with you last week about the actual results and findings of the study. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to work on this and see if you guys had any questions for me at this time.
I have none.
I had a few. This is kind of a rude question, but can you just tell, like, the methodology that the Arnold Group is, qualifications of Arnold Group, your experiences with Arnold Group, and just give us a general idea of those things so that way I guess, roughly, we know we can trust these numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. So Phil Hayes is our vice president. You met with him last week. Phil Hayes has been in HR at the Arnold Group for over 25 years, been doing compensation for at least the past 20 years, using the Hay methodology and the compensation tool, I would say, for the past 10 years. My experience, so all of Phil's time has been focused at the Arnold Group, but working on different projects, definitely compensation. I have 27 years of experience in HR, was actually at Sedgwick County for 7 years. So it's nice to kind of have that insight on kind of that, how the county works behind the scenes. But I have worked with compensation plans, setting up performance reviews, completely at Sedgwick County actually did a complete overhaul of their performance system, as well as looking at compensation and market.
Okay, thank you.
When coming up with the numbers that are presented, you did compensation studies, so where did the numbers come from? Did they come from private, or did they come from fellow public entities to do fair comparisons?
Yeah, great question. So we bring in, and we looked at the United States, we looked at Kansas as a whole, we looked specifically at Ellis County, kind of a funnel that we did looking at all areas around Ellis County. Those numbers are from public companies, private companies, large, small, so it's an annual survey done by the Department of Labor that comes in each year, and there's each of the jobs have a specific number with the reporting back from other entities.
Okay, so when we look at our public employees, this scale may not fit the private industry for that same job, or would it?
Not necessarily, no, because we've brought in the average of, for that particular position, we've brought in the average from, I think, 6 different data points. So I don't think it wouldn't necessarily match completely.
Okay.
We also, when we talked with you last week, we talked about if Ellis County wants to lag, lead, or play par with the market. So typically, we don't see counties and cities that are, up here leading the market, but you do typically see private industries that are doing that. So I don't know that they would match dollar for dollar. The other thing we see a lot is position titles are all over the place. You may have a HR generalist somewhere that's truly a generalist, but the title is they're truly a director in another county. So that's why we don't like the method of chasing down individual positions at like local areas. We like to use that data from the Department of Labor.
Okay, thank you.
I will make a comment. It's long overdue. I know Darren and I had talked about it years back already, so this is a good move for the county.
So Darren, it's more for you. So what we're approving today, one is we're just approving the study that Arnold Group has done for us and essentially completed, and asking us to approve the study that they've done. Two is, that's why our agenda is 595. We have job descriptions that have all been updated from custodial to county administrator. And then three is the actual matrix, the compensation policy itself. We're just approving those today, not the actual increases or where everybody's essentially placed. But we're just doing the study, the job descriptions, and then the policy going forward. And I'm kind of clarifying that.
That's affirmative. Just adopting the study itself gives us further directions on how to proceed with the next couple steps. A big part of the process that we worked with the Arnold Group and Heather and Phil with was Chris and Jennifer's efforts and all the department heads and elected officials to take all of the job descriptions, like you said, 487 pages worth, and we did miss some. So your next agenda will be longer as well, because we have about 10 or 12 that we need to get added in. But taking those job descriptions, updating the job descriptions, those job descriptions were evaluated, and that's the principal factors on the point factor analysis. Putting them on a pay scale would be the next step. So approving the job descriptions, approving the study, approving the policy will then allow myself in the next couple weeks before the next commission agenda to take all that with the final numbers that we get, or the final suggestions that the commissioners looked at last week for the pay scale and the adjustments that will be needed for the April 2nd meeting. We should be getting the numbers today, I believe. The final, and that's been a working document, so it's been kind of hard, because even as Jennifer and I met yesterday, we have a change already that has to be made as employees transfer, promote, demote, leave, or get hired. So it's kind of hard to stick with a number, but at some point we're going to have to say, okay, this is the final document. This is what I have to work with for salary adjustments, and put it through the budget, so that way at the next meeting, the proposal to the commission will be the wage implementation and the budget adjustments to move money from the budget stabilization account into individual departments to make the adjustments necessary, as well as provide you with a date, which we're looking at, depending on what the final adjustments are coming in the next week, is to hopefully being able to implement the wage study, the pay adjustments for both the employees, the department heads, the elected officials, all in mid-April.
Okay.
And part of the process also was, as I had mentioned, a lot with Jennifer and HR, myself and Heather and Phil, but also the department heads taking all those job descriptions back to their departments, their employees, reviewing those to make sure that they were accurate, so that way when they're graded, they were accurate. And then also we've taken it to the Wage and Benefits Committee with Ellis County that represents several different, Public Works, EMS, sworn, the law enforcement, the department heads, as well as the fifth one would be office personnel. And Braden's here as the chairperson of that committee, as they are in support of the wage study as well, and the future impacts that it'll have for the employees. So that's kind of the process that we've used. I know I kind of jumped around there a little bit, but there's a lot of information, a lot of work that has been spent on this with both Heather and Phil, as well as department heads and employees.
I know I've had several, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, just to conclude that with that thought, thank you for, because this is a little bit of a formality, but it's not. I believe this is probably the most important thing we're going to do this year for the county. But without approving the compensation policy, we can't take the next step of essentially putting everybody where they're supposed to be. So that's why this is a little bit of a formality of getting to that point of approving this, and then by approving it, then we can take that next step. Without approving it, we can't take a step. So.
Correct.
That's kind of.
I could have combined all of it in to create the next step today, but with being on vacation last week and we had some changes that could impact those adjustments for the budget, I wanted to make sure that we had everything finalized. I want to meet with each department head again after we get the workbook from the Arnold Group and ensure everything is correct. There's nothing that was mistaken between each department head, so that way they have that final review, and then those adjustments can be made for that next meeting.
Okay, as I was saying, I've, I guess, visited with several of the employees, and they're all anxious for this, but I told them, you know, we want to do it right away, do it right the first time and get it, and then maybe it was a good thing you were on vacation because we caught some other ones that needed to be, you know, put in, and everything happens for a reason, so everybody be patient, and it'll have a good outcome in the end.
Got another question here on the compensation policy itself. Elected officials are included, excluding, at this time, county commissioners. So our county sheriff, treasurer, appraiser, register of deeds. I'm missing anybody else?
The attorney, clerk,
Attorney.
treasurer, register of deeds,
Okay.
and the sheriff. And per our discussion yesterday, did not include the county commissioners. And I, after the meeting here this morning, I'll update the request to visit with Heather in regards to the county commissioners. I don't know if you want to discuss that option here with the.
I guess I might as well open that can of worms a little bit and just put some daylight on it a little bit. But before I open that, again, just everybody in the county and currently within this current policy, our elected officials have been included, and they will be slotted into the matrix, the pay scale, and then would also, along, like again, the elected officials, treasurer and appraiser, if going forward under the policy, step increases in COLA adjustments, they would be included in that, the way the current policy is.
Correct.
Currently, the 3 commissioners would be excluded. So to speak of that, as our discussion yesterday, we've had this discussion last week, and then I discussed with Darren yesterday a little bit of considering putting the county commissioners in there. From my understanding, they would be slotted at like level 42, which compensation-wise would well exceed what county commissioners exceed. But if they were adjusted to like an 8-hour or 10-hour slot, then we'd be compensated commissioners at the same level we currently are. And I think we should kind of look at that going forward and saying, I don't want to give ourselves an increase, but the whole idea to me of elected officials hate giving, they don't want to vote for their own increase, but inevitably sometimes they're kind of forced to. The public hates it when public officials vote for their own, but the only people that can give elected officials an increase are the elected officials, and they're kind of stuck in a policy of past commissioners have done it, and now you're kind of there, and only outgoing commissioners typically are kind of say, yeah, let's do it because I'm not going to get elected again. By putting commissioners on this same kind of structure, they'd be to me, they'd be at the same table as all the other county employees and other elected officials. They would start at, if you're a new elected official, county commissioner, you'd start at that base level that they're currently at, and you get years of experience. Neil's got 3 years. Do they get a little bit of an increase each year for those increase, and they're elected again and serve 8 years, 12 years? But they're also subject then to, if a county commission decides that the budget's too tight, we can't give step increases or COLA increases, they're on the same page as all the other county employees. And the more I think about that, it just seems to make sense to me that it would allow elected officials to know, again, where they're going to be and not have to ever be in a spot where they necessarily have to just vote for their own or deny themselves some kind of increase. So that's the conversation. I don't know if we want to pursue that with this current policy and maybe have that conversation later, but I'm going to kind of open that up and let, I guess, my fellow commissioners or Darren kind of speak to it if they want to.
I think one of the changes that, in regards to elected officials, not necessarily the commission, but the clerk, the treasurer, the sheriff, the attorney, and the register of deeds, is within the last decade, a resolution was made that says this is what an elected official makes, no matter what year they are, or how many years experience they have, or how long they've been elected for, and it's just been that same. So you could have I'll pick on Bobby, been with the county as the clerk, just say 20 years. It's not the case, but say Bobby was the clerk for 20 years and she makes X amount of dollars. The resolution states that if Bobby were to decide not to run again, the next clerk would make the same as the previous clerk that had 20 years experience. What this new policy does is it puts all of the elected officials on a pay scale, so that way the clerk's range is, say, step or grade 35, and they have steps 1 through 20, just like the rest of the employees do. And what that does then is, once Bobby would either retire or decide not to run again, the new clerk would start at step 1 with 0 years experience. And then each year they would have that same step adjustment for what all the other employees are. That way the elected officials aren't getting any more or any less than what the rest of the employees are. That way prevents complaints, ensures transparency, but creates fairness as well between all employees. That exact same philosophy can be used with the county commissioners. That work was done preliminary within the study. I think it would just be an estimate that if we wanted to start that policy off with the county commission as your current rate is as it is today. Oops, screen went blank. We could just adjust those hours to make sure that that starting step 1 of that pay grade for a commissioner is the exact same amount that you are now. And then if you're at your first year of service, you're at step 1, second year of service, step 2, third year, etc. And we can implement that within this process as well to ensure all 8 elected officials in the county are the same, but essentially not approving a separate pay scale for the county commissioners or no pay scale. It just keeps everybody on the same playing field.
Thoughts?
Myself, my opinion, we all do a lot of work. I'm good where I'm at. I would elect not to even, get an increase, but that's my opinion. It's just something I feel I do for the community, but
Well, if I heard right, this would not actually be voting on an increase.
Right.
This would be
Step.
just putting us into the same matrix
correct.
that the rest of the employees are in.
Right, we'd use the same process to evaluate your tasks, the knowledge that's needed to come up with the final score. As Michael said, our commissioners that we have done the studies for typically come out of 42, just based off the scope of work, the complexity. But yeah, it wouldn't be difficult at all to include a commissioner position in there to see where it scores out.
And to kind of clear, 42 would be something like an administrator level or an attorney level, and I don't think, again, I'm not going to try to claim that I should be paid like an attorney at this position, but again, that kind of scoring level for the duties and stuff. And it kind of scores because a lot of counties don't have an administrator, and that was kind of a part of the process originally, is county commissioners maybe got paid more because they're doing a lot more without an administrator. With an administrator, maybe they shouldn't get paid as much. So that's, but to say, yeah, we should score 42 and get paid it, it comes to like $80,000 or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's absurd. So, but you could scale the hours back and just say, county commissioners 8 hours at that wage would come to whatever we get of 19 plus. So.
And I believe we had a few positions that were part-time that we scaled hours back, so I believe so. So we would be able to do that as well.
I would like to think from my standpoint, I'd like to think on that portion of it. Maybe not approve that portion today, but I would like to approve the rest of what's been presented, or move forward with what's been presented if the other commissioners so choose. I do appreciate you bringing that up for conversation. It's a good point to at least take a step back and take a look at.
Okay,
That's
that being said, I'll move to approve the attached job descriptions, the new Ellis County compensation policy, and the wage study.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate the hard work.
Thank you very much.
I gotta scroll through.
Page 577, if that helps. While you're looking at that, I know I mentioned it to each commissioner yesterday. From the policy that is in the work, in your agenda, there was one change as one of the lines on the second page of the compensation policy used the word manager, and I did update that as Mr. Jeter reviewed it. We changed that back to department heads and elected officials, as that's what we refer to managers are in Ellis County. And then also within the 487 pages of job descriptions, there were about a dozen that had either some changes that were missing from the agenda item or had some final revisions, like the classifications for the multipliers on the pay study. Any of those corrections that were in your agenda today or the ones that were not included will be on your April 2nd agenda for approval as well. We just had a couple mistakes and over 487 pages. Hopefully we're okay to have a few mistakes in there, but we'll get them updated and on your next agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Do you mind if I add something, larger discussion real quick?
Go ahead.
Robert Anderson, Ellis County Attorney. Thanks for giving me just a little bit of time. Commissioner Burgess brought up a really great point about elected officials possibly being skittish about, advocating for their own raises, things like that. That's certainly a position I find myself in. I've approached the commission many times throughout my term, advocating for increases for attorneys, and always clarifying that I'm not asking for a raise for myself. I took this position on as a service to my community, knowing what the salary was, and never asking for a raise for myself, but certainly advocating that the salary itself be raised for the next term, for the next guy, and for reasons provided. And so I know that the commission's not voting for approval of raises today, things like that, but in the upcoming days and weeks, maybe consider for this issue specific to commissioners. And even for myself, the county attorney position, I won't speak for other elected officials, certainly won't do that, but it would be possible, I would imagine, to approve putting elected officials, including the commissioners, on this pay scale, but delaying its implementation until the next term, right? So, for instance, I could stand up here and advocate that the county attorney's salary be put on this scale and approved, but that you don't implement it now, implement it January 13th, 2025. And then I'm not advocating necessarily for a raise for myself, I'm advocating for a raise for the position. And then if I want that raise, I go out and I campaign for it. And so maybe that's a way to, I don't know, solve that kind of hesitancy of advocating for what you do yourselves, and whether or not it's selfless or in the interest of the county. And so I just thought maybe that might be a good idea if you want to kick that idea around. But generally, very much in favor of this wage study and where things are headed, but thought I'd throw that in there as well.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the comment.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the Feedlot Road right-of-way vacation.
Morning, Commissioners. Brendan McKay, Ellis County Public Works Director.
Morning.
So before you is the request to vacate a section of right-of-way along Feedlot Road. So as the construction of Northwest Business Corridor, actually design work was underway, there was a plat there on Vaggie Tract that had additional right-of-way along Feedlot Road. That was added in for the construction limits was needed. When they were going through the right-of-way process, they found out that section actually had been vacated back to the landowner. So the specialist acquiring the right-of-way for us on this project bought back that 17 feet that was originally donated to the county for that plat. With that said, it does encroach on the feedlot water lines, rural easement for their water line. They're 30 feet either way. So with this request would be to vacate a section of right-of-way that is not used, is not needed for the roadway. It was an additional one for the construction limits. Back to that landowner so that the landowner can provide a new easement for the rural water district out there. So this won't affect the travel of the roadway. It's not closing the road. It's 17 feet along the very south edge of the roadway that was bought just for the construction limits.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I don't-
Okay. No, with that, I'll move to approve resolution number 24-06, vacating a portion of county's right-of-way for Feedlot Road.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have FFY 2024 Off-System Bridge Program Utility Relocation.
Yep. So fortunately, you have to see me a lot of times when we have grants. It's about the fourth time or fifth time you see me for this grant in particular, and you have to see me about once or twice more before it's completed. With that project, the construction costs are 100% covered by the state. County's just responsible for design, any utility, or right-of-way acquisition. So with that said, we do have a utility relocation that is required payment because it's outside of the current property, the county right-of-way. There's also a utility that's inside the county right-of-way that's going to be relocated at the owner's cost. So that's what this is about. Getting about $1.2 million and spending between design and right-of-way and utility about $65,000-$70,000. In order to keep moving forward, we need to have these resolution or these agreements signed and pay for the utility relocation for the fiber line that's outside of the current right-of-way.
Okay. What's the utility currently located inside the right-of-way?
That would be Midwest Energy's line.
Okay,
That's why there's a $0 figure for that,
got it.
and $19,021.44 for the Next Tech fiber relocation,
Gotcha.
fiber and phone.
Okay,
No, there, I would if I wasn't confusing myself. What, so the 19,000 is for, what am I?
The 19,000 is for the labor and the materials required by Next Tech, well, Next Tech / Rural Phone Service Company, LLC, to relocate their utilities that exist in a private easement outside of the current county's right-of-way. So to do this project, the county had to acquire more right-of-way. So some utilities, it's free if they put it inside the county right-of-way, but if the county has a need for it, it's moved at the owner's expense at that time. If they put it in a private easement outside the county right-of-way and the county needs to expand their right-of-way for a project such as a bridge or a road reconstruction, the county is then responsible for the cost to relocate that right.
Okay,
And this is going to be a permanent relocation, not a temporary one,
okay,
because of this bridge down there is inadequately sized for that area, for the drainage structure. It's down at the bottom of a hill. It's hard to see. The new structure is going to be, and it does overtop frequently when we get that thing called rain out here and heavy rains. The new structure is going to be a 165-foot span structure instead of a 60-foot span structure. So it's a much larger structure that's going to be on grade instead of being recessed down the hill, so improving sight lines for safety and drainage. Water should go under the bridge instead of over it.
okay. So the 1.2 is for the bridge.
Yep, that's what we
Okay,
got for this
that's
grant
where I'm-
project.
I'm like, why would it cost
But
that much to
I
move
wanted to
stuff?
include that to show you that we're paying
Okay.
$65,000, but we're getting that much from the state for this bridge.
Okay,
Sorry, lots of numbers on there.
so we have two motions here then?
that's
Yes.
correct.
So I'll move to approve the utility relocation agreements for Midwest Energy Incorporated and PO number 7815 for the utility relocation for Next Tech Rural Telephone Service Company LLC.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And then I move to allow the Public Works Director to sign Kansas Department of Transportation KDOT Form 1304 for the status of utilities for the FFY 2024 Off-System Bridge Program.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
yep. Okay, next. Purchase of a tractor and mower for roadside maintenance.
Yes, sir. So although we are using Sourcewell, staff, myself, Gary, and other staff did pursue different manufacturers of different machines and different mowers, because there's a multitude out there. So we want to make sure we got the best tool for the county at the best price that's going to work for us in more than just one way. So originally there was $150,000 budgeted to transfer to reserves for the replacement of a mower tractor. That would get us a 105, 110 horse tractor and a side mount mower like we currently have. It works, but it's only good for mowing. You can't do anything else with it. And then you also have all that debris kicking up, getting in the radiators, plus an extra cooler that's up front. The county currently has a 145, 150 horse John Deere tractor with a 10-foot pull behind mower with a specialty hitch so it can get further out. And we found that that's the way most counties are going. Gary talked with staff at his Noxious Weed Directors Association, and that's what a lot of counties are moving to. One, because it moves all that dirt and debris that's kicked up further behind the machine and not kicking it up right alongside the machine, getting up in the radiators. And two, it allows the county to use that machine for more than just mowing. We don't mow year-round because grass doesn't grow year-round. So in times when it's not needed for the mowing season, it can be utilized because it has the weight and power to pull a sheep's foot or a flat roller, which is what we currently do with the 150. Since staff, we were asked to do more maintenance and do more with what we have out there, the thought was with the year-end transfer, we would go exceed that $150,000 that was budgeted for to have a tool that will do more than one thing for us, be used more throughout the year. And then the bush hog mower, we have a Schulte currently that's sort of top of the line, cream of the crop. It's quite a bit more expensive than the bush hog. Bush hog has been run by a lot of counties. It's what I purchased for my time when I was with Lincoln County. It's what a lot of the counties out west here are utilizing because it's almost a Schulte with thickness is just a hair thinner, but parts are available. They're not coming from Canada. We have a local dealer support network for it, and that's why we're recommending that option instead of going with any of the other options that are out there, whether it be a Land Pride, a Schulte, a Gravely. There's a multitude of options. This is what we were recommending.
Gotcha. Gary, would you like to, you got any comment?
Gary Haas, Weed Control Supervisor. Pretty well what Brendan said. I mean, I did demo the one brand we have. We tried out another brand, plus then the Massey, we had it as a demo. And just operational on that tractor, it just, for our mowing operation, it just seemed to work the best. It's got there's 6 power shift gears in each range, which for changing speeds at, changing grass heights and stuff, it worked better. It's got a cruise control feature that works really well for that. It's got a brake to neutral function, so it just seemed to operate good. The wide openness for servicing was much better on that. I even had our shop foreman come out and look at it with us, and he approved it and liked it. Another item too, which has been a problem on what we have, is the fiberglass and plastic hoods breaking and the headlights. This does have a steel hood on it, which I think will be a big plus for us. Mower-wise, that bush hog, it's a 1/4-inch thick deck. It is as thick as our Schulte, and it seemed like the best option for us to go with mower-wise. So I.
Okay. Did you guys check on reversing fan on these?
I did, and on those, smaller tractors, they're kind of a mid-sized tractor, but it wasn't available.
Okay.
And it really isn't a problem with where we're going to with the pull behind mowers as much. I mean, there is time where the wind would be behind us, but we have rigged up, also our fuel trailers rigged up with a portable air compressor, so when we go out and service and stuff like that, we'll be cleaning out the radiator daily, and I think we can stay away from that issue. It
Okay.
takes a pretty large tractor to start getting the reversing fan, or, I mean, I guess we could look into adding it as a add-on, but, you know, it'd be pricey.
Right. Well, and trying to keep things clean and last longer and be more efficient without
Right.
having to get out and clean screens. So, I guess I would encourage looking into something along that line. Just,
I will.
we're coming in under, on just the tractor alone where we initially anticipated, so
Yeah, okay.
I would look into it. Questions?
That's my opinion also, look into that, because my skid loader has it, and so it's not near the horsepower this is, but
Right.
it does make a difference,
Mhm.
just on the maintenance part of it,
Right.
and the longevity, so.
Will, yeah.
And, you know, with the Massey, and I talked to you about that when I, observed that tractor at the shop. My dad ran them for years and years and years, and there was nothing wrong with them, so,
Yeah.
good to try.
Yeah, I haven't been a Massey guy, but I mean, we really just were kind of impressed with that tractor, what it did for us and how it operated, and I think it'll be a good fit. And the big thing wasn't, which, I mean, it's as much or more horsepower than the John Deere that we have, or about right even with it, but the big thing we found with it isn't a horsepower requirement, it's more of a weight and tire size requirement. With where we're traveling on those ditches and with pulling a mower behind us, it's more of a weight issue. So, and this tractor fulfills that.
Okay, and then I'll brag on the two young gentlemen that were out there. They've got a lot of accountability. You
Yeah.
can tell they have some pride in there.
Yeah, very good operators.
yes.
Yeah. And the other thing too, with moving, like Brendan was saying, not having the side deck mower, I mean, that side deck mower that we were running is only a 5-foot swath, where this is 10 foot. It's gonna we can do a lot nicer job out in the ditches and mow a wider path. So,
Gotcha.
On the other hand, how did that mower work that you had on that we purchased a used one? How did that work?
The flail?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we tried it out in just some dry grass. Yeah, it cut good. We'll,
Okay, I know you were
We'll give it a
heading out
whirl.
with it when,
yeah.
so, okay,
Yeah,
good.
and that also gives an option for the tractor with a pull-behind mower. We can take it off of that, hook this onto the 3-point, and, have multi-use. Along with pulling a sheep's foot, it can pull that flail mower, it can pull the batwing mower.
Good.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Okay.
Speaking to that, so that flail mower, it was what I had done with Lincoln County. I had a flail mower and a 10-foot pull behind, because not everywhere can you cut a 10-foot path. And rather than having 5 foot of blade spinning up on top of the road surface, just kicking dust around, or if you have thick branches or brambles, the price of a flail mower and the 10-foot batwing is similar to that one of a hydraulically mounted boom mower like we have on the other machines. So it gives us more options and more flexibility to have a machine that we can use throughout the entire year, not just a few months of the year. So we're getting more value out of the machine.
Very good.
So to your question, do we want to approve this, or do you want to wait and, on the reverse fan and see if there's something, I don't know how much that addition would be, a couple thousand or 10,000, I don't know, but do we want to approve the mower and wait, or can we approve it, and if they find the option with a reverse fan, they can get it?
It might be an aftermarket solution
Okay.
that not available from the dealer itself.
Okay.
So we can add it on at a later date to the machine.
Okay.
I would suggest that, just go ahead and
Just
approving
approve it, okay.
as is, and then having them go ahead and look for that as an add-on option.
Okay. Yeah, my only comment, I think it's over budget to be able to get both here, but I think it's good, because from our discussion, again, from our direction to your department was we're funding you fully, or you're being funded fully by the budget. You've got more employees that are dedicated to this because we want our roads maintained and ditches. So to be able to do that appropriately, we need appropriate equipment. So just from that standpoint, from the direction we gave you last year, and as we move in that direction, this makes sense to me, so.
You know, and with that, Massey, it had a lot of space in between. It's something we should try, but I'm still with the reversing fan. If we can, you know, look into that, that does make a difference. Okay, I'll move to approve POs 7816 and 7817 for the purchase of a 2024 Massey tractor and a 2024 Bush Hog 5110 Flex Wing Mower.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, this is where we have our additions to our agenda. This next discussion, we'll talk about a reclaimer.
All right. So, it's not before you, it might be if we got it sent in, is the purchase of a reclaimer.
Is a new addition to our agenda.
Yes. So it's, I'll wait for Darren to bring it up.
Here it is. Okay.
That's a little much.
So what I'm bringing forward here is the request to purchase a new 2024 CAT RM500B road reclaimer with the 7-year Premier with travel and CSA warranty on it, which would mean that the dealer would come out and do the servicing because we do not have the tools to do all of the services the machine requires for its warranty. We've had our current one since 2017. We have had some issues with it. It's on its third transmission on the front. That's not something that's been found on any other machine in the fleet. So the request is to replace this before the warranty, when the warranty expires or before the warranty expires, so we don't get stuck with some costly repairs. We've also found at about 4,000 hours, between 3,000 and 5,000 hours, generally can be anywhere in that range, you start getting into chain case repairs that need rebuilds or replace. On our last PM sample, which was at 3,321 hours, it was 70 hours overdue because the specialist truck caught on fire. So he was unable to make it out there till a week and a half later. And we were using up the new lot. That's why it has that many more hours over it. The front right drive sensor had a fault on it because it was abnormal speed, so we stopped it. There's high iron showing up in the oil sample for the front right, or for the right chain case, which is what drives the drive wheels. And there was visible metal in the left chain case sample that was taken. Don't immediately shut the machine down, but it is letting us know that there's going to be repairs to this in the future or breakdowns because of this. The RM350 the county had prior to this one, they had it for almost just over 14 years, from 2004 to 2017. It had chain cases replaced on it, and when it was let go, the county went to a larger size machine to be more capable to do the projects it's wanting to do, which is reclaiming some of the asphalt roads, reconstructing them, and also it's a much better machine for extracting the rock we have out here for use on the roadways. That machine also had wiring harness issues and wiring harness replaced. They were using silicone tubes because they couldn't get to the leaks on the transmission that it had at the time. It was needing a cab off replacement and repair. That was why county had gotten rid of that one, because they'd paid for the machine multiple times over that course of that 15 years versus getting into a new machine with a newer lease. So the request for this one is, there's one on the ground right now in Kansas City. Choose not to go for it, that's fine, it's your decision. It would be beneficial to have this on the ground for our Ellis Avenue project because it has a pump on it from the factory to inject water you set your rate of water injection that you want so you can get accurate compaction. Right now we have a trash pump and a spray bar that we designed. So it does what it does. Usually it involves myself and an employee walking around inside it, moving throttles and adjusting valves, trying to get the right amount of moisture, but not too much or too little. I think that covers a lot of it. I'll stand for questions for you guys.
This 7-year factory, front to back,
Yes, sir. Unless we drive it off a cliff, which shouldn't happen, but if it's any service it needs is covered in this.
and with the shavings in the, that just all of a sudden popped up, correct?
Yes, the left one had high iron in a previous sample. Now there's visible metal shavings in it. It's kind of how that goes through there.
So what was the record or the hours on that before when that was checked?
Every 250 hours.
Okay. And we have a record of that, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So samples are taken, every 250 it has a service, and then every 500 it has different services, but samples are taken of every component at the 250 on that machine. Because that's, like on this reclaimer, it's a 3,500 hour 7-year warranty. A grader's a 7-year 8,500 hour warranty. These machines experience a lot more, it's not abuse, but a wear and tear just from the actions of what they're put through. And it's a reclaimer or road, they call them recyclers or soil compactions. Their main point is to reclaim soil and stabilize bases. Counties found, we're not the only one, we found we use it for extracting aggregates or shale or rock from county owned pits. And it also is capable of going through and milling up asphalt and as a base stabilizer. It's not, we're trying to do 3 jobs with 1 piece of equipment. We could get 3 specialized pieces of equipment that could each do that individual job better. But with resources we were given, we're trying to do everything with 1 tool, and this is the 1 tool we'd recommend. I went out and demoed different products from different manufacturers. We had them come out here and run a test sample with us for a few days. The other machine, the vendor, it worked great in one aspect, but what that machine spends the majority of its life doing, it did not do in the way that we found satisfactory. They changed some things, demoed it in Osborne County. Myself, I went up there for half a day, and I had staff go up there for another day to ride along with the vendor and demo it there. And we still experienced the same issue. It was grinding the material too fine, and I don't want to put just dust on the roadway.
We do a good job of that already.
Yeah, we're doing too much of that already, is right.
Okay, well, Brendan, I got some problems with this, and I've discussed a number of them with you. What starts in 2 weeks?
Ellis Avenue project.
It's amazing that we had high iron samples from our previous service that were not discussed here. We're going to have people look at us, go, what are we doing in preparation for a job such as Ellis Avenue? And then we get placed with a purchase order for $1 million piece of equipment 2 weeks in front of the project that looks really, really bad.
We can do it with our current machine.
Will the current machine last the project? We've got iron,
should.
we've got iron and, we've got,
Yes.
but we've already been shut down once for a sensor because of the iron in these systems. So will it complete that? Can you guarantee that?
I can't guarantee even if the new machine can go through
Well,
without any
that's-
breakdowns.
That's the problem.
Yes.
So I have a really, really hard time with some of the things, some of the way it's been presented,
Gotcha.
especially when we had a previous machine last nearly 14 years, and we can't get the machine that's been factory maintained to last 7.
No, so the one that lasted 14 years, it had lots of repairs and replacements just like this one did, but the county kept paying for it. So it's either you pay for it's a trade-off. Either you eat the bills with the maintenance and the downtimes, or you pay for the lease payment with the warranty on it. The number ends up tipping almost to the lease payment with downtimes, because if this machine breaks down, it comes with a replacement. If the one we have now goes out of warranty and we have a breakdown,
But a
get a
replacement
loaner.
machine isn't worth anything if it's not on the ground.
correct.
So that warranty is worth 0.
And it may not be a brand new machine that'd be a replacement as loaner. They may have one in their rental fleet or at a sister company. When our current machine has broke down, they've brought a spare out to us. May not have been a brand new machine, but another machine was brought to replace that one when we had breakdowns in major services. When it went down to Salina for a wiring harness issue, a replacement machine was brought out to us.
Right. Like I said, I've got issues with the way it's been presented. For purchasing a machine to do the jobs that it's designed to do, and it's $1 million machine, and 7 years is all we can get out of it.
We can get more. It's just going to start costing more.
Well, it's already cost quite a bit. So, I've got, like I said, I've got my reservations on why it is here the way it is.
Yeah.
So, however, I will say, we have made a commitment to this project. We have made a commitment to those people to get this project completed in a timely manner.
Yeah.
We have done everything else in our power up here for your department to make sure you have the equipment to get it handled in a timely manner, in a smooth manner to make it as painless as possible. And I expect that to happen. I don't know about my other commissioners, but I don't want to pull back from our timeline.
Right.
Now, them people have waited long enough, and I don't like spending that amount of money on anything, but I know nothing's guaranteed. Just so something don't happen with this machine, although it's new, is there something for a backup plan just in case? Because like I say, we've been
Yeah.
dragging that project on for a long time.
2.5 years, yes.
Yeah.
Outside of that project, what other projects this summer would we be using a reclaimer for?
We'd be using it for creating of the aggregate that we use on the county roadways out of the limestone. It also is used up at our new lot for cutting that down. We had 12 feet of material we had to cut out to build that lot. And then there's also a few of our other road reconstructions. Feedlot Road will need this similar action we're doing to Ellis Avenue. Cathedral or Catherine Road. A lot of the roads that were done with the Golden Place recycle prior to my coming out here, we're seeing the signs of those don't last forever. And instead of adding back on top of it and ignoring the base issues, I'd like to fix it from the base up. And that's what this machine would be used for. Whether we stick with our current machine or we go to a newer one, it's up to the three of you to decide.
Mind you, we have a lease payment for the new machine, but we still have a balloon payment due on our previous machine.
Correct. My predecessor, he paid it. He had a 7-year lease with payment in arrears. So that payment is still due at the end of the machine, or when it's traded off.
If this machine gets through, so the current one is still under warranty up to when? Till June?
June.
And when's Ellis Ave, South Ellis supposed to be done?
In 2 weeks.
We're starting
Well,
April
starting,
1st.
but
5
start
weeks
in
is what we
April
estimated.
5. So it theoretically would still be under warranty, get through that project to see if
Correct.
it needs to. Because I kind of have the same concerns. We've been trying to get ready for this project, and now we're
And we've got it,
not.
and we can do it with our current machine.
And that's kind of where, we're supposed to have lost the number, 300 and some thousand. What do we lose in trade-in value if we use it through this project and try to unload it before June anyway?
I can ask them.
Are we getting that value, I don't know, wherever it is, 300 and some, because it's under warranty or just because of the hours we have on it currently? And we're going to be
Bit of both.
potentially adding hours to it.
Bit of both.
Okay.
These issues with the potential issues that are upcoming with the chain drive should be covered whether it breaks in warranty or because it's shown a history of it. A lot of times they'll do what they call good faith warranty, where they will pay for labor and parts. County would be responsible for bringing the machine to them and bringing it back at county's cost. Plus, we would not have a replacement machine while it's down under good faith warranty.
Yeah, the replacement's in, the new machine, not the replacement. The new machine is in Kansas City. The other risk we're taking is we delay. CAT sells that, and now we do want to go ahead and improve a reclaimer down the road, but there's not one sitting somewhere.
Correct.
With this new one, the reclaimer, and it's kind of off the beaten path, but can you set that machine to have some bigger material when you're reclaiming?
Correct. And
Okay.
what we aim for right now is about a 4 to 5 inch minus material.
Okay.
So you have some fines, less than 20% fines. We don't have any aggregate testing sieves at the county anymore. A lot of counties do. I don't know if the county sold theirs or never had them. So we can just go off of looks and rudimentary tests, not accurate aggregate tests, but it aims for like a 4-inch minus material. The competitor machine we tested, it was like 60 to 80% fines and like a 1-inch, inch and a half material. That's way too much fines to put on a county roadway. Because you need those fines. It's basically if you have a 4-inch stone and just 4-inch stone, and it's all 4-inch north and fine, it can look pretty, but there's nothing holding it, locking it together. You need some fines to fill those voids to make a solid base. So that's what comes from, that's why we have rollers on our road overlay projects on the rock roads, because we're breaking down the material, getting it to fit in those little gaps, and then you need a little bit of fines on the crust to make it a nice smooth roadway that will shed the water. Because if you have a bunch of loose rock sitting next to each other, there's no way for it to shed water. It'll just go down and get through, get in the base, and then your road rots out from the bottom. So you actually do need some fines in order to get that, just like on a sand road, without having any binder, whether that be rock, clay, or dirt, or shale. There's nothing that holds that sand together. It moves, sand's rounded. So you need that 20 to 25% binder to get it to form and stay its shape and shed water. So it doesn't washboard, doesn't track up.
Well, putting it lightly, we're in between a rock and a hard spot.
And we were not expecting this to show up before the Ellis Avenue project. We prepared our machine so we can complete it. It's just with this showing up here now, the opportunity to do this more accurately with the water for compaction is a benefit for this project. We will do with what we have, like we have in the past. That's why instead of spending about $65,000, $70,000 on a water injection pump for our old machine, we made one out of a semi-trash pump and a spray bar and some diamond welder and some hosing. Does it do what it needs to do? Yes. Is it accurate? Is it accurate as a person walking alongside the thing is? Visually.
Well, I personally don't want to sit here and take the butt chewings when a piece of equipment that has been supposedly maintained to the highest standards fails. I'd rather be able to say we did everything we could here to make sure we got our projects done. It's really, really bugs me. This is yeah. Any further comments?
Yeah, it's, like I say, we need to get that done down there, just for the safety aspect of it too.
Yeah, that's why we originally planned on doing 1 mile or 2 miles at a time instead of the whole thing in one shot, was to, in case there was issues, it wasn't delaying the entire project, but given the direction to do it all at once, I'd like to do it right. And I'll work with whatever the tools I'm given to work with are.
Yeah, here's another idea or a thought. Ours is on the fritz. Why don't we approve this, take both of them down there and get it done? It's not like if one of them's gonna bust, it's not a 2 or 3 mile detour. That's a long detour around to get that project done. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, but if
You know what, this is, in my opinion, we're getting salesmen. This is a salesman ploy, to some degree.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be my strong arm is, okay, we'll approve it. They're gonna send it down without picking up the other one. And we're gonna run 2.
Yep, get it done. If
I
you've
don't
got
have
enough
staff
personnel.
Yeah, that's where I would struggle with is the staffing for it, because both would need water trucks hooked to it. The tandem trucks, we're down a tandem truck since we didn't repair the one last fall.
Well, regardless,
Putting a bed on.
the other machine doesn't leave. So
Yeah.
if we can't run 2, it doesn't leave till that
Till we're
project's
Till we're
done.
done.
I can request that from them. I don't know if we can be up to Darren now. Would that be allowed, or can I talk with the dealer to see if they would be willing to do that?
Could you try to make a phone call real quick and we could adjust a couple other items on the agenda before table this for
We can do
till
that.
Justin, and we got 3 more items to discuss. Might give you at least an opportunity to see if it's available.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Justin, you're on the hot seat.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Justin Craig, Environmental Services Director. A couple of weeks ago, received an email from KDHE about the possibility of a grant that could be awarded to Ellis County if we wanted to apply for it. It was to replace failing septic systems for citizens that were under certain, like, federal poverty levels. It would cover the 100% cost. If they're under 133%, 134 to 200, it would cover 85%. Sounded great. I sent it to Jeter and Darren. We kind of talked about it a little bit. I guess the thing that's kind of holding us back is it puts it all onto us. We have to come up with the application, the agreement. We distribute the funds to the contractor directly. We have to do the verification of income. It sounds fairly simple from what I've spoken with Adrian with as far as the contract and the application. I've come up with that, just a draft one for her. She approved of it. Mr. Jeter hasn't seen it. I guess our main concern was if we wanted to take on the liability possibly of getting that sensitive information from a citizen, and if I'm not an accountant, if I do it wrong or approve somebody that shouldn't be approved.
That'd be
I guess I should say during the course of this, she sent another email saying we have $50,000 waiting for us if we want to apply for it. I forgot to add that in. So we've basically been approved without applying for it.
Do you have any other projects that we could apply for, that she'll approve funding for, that we didn't apply for?
Not that I'm aware of. This was set aside specifically for counties to try and replace failing septic systems for lower income landowners, which I don't know if there is that need in Ellis County. I would assume there probably is somewhere, but I think it's something that could be beneficial to the county. I just, I didn't know if we wanted to take on the onus of being 100% responsible for it.
Sounds like a good deal, but like you say, is there the need out there? I'm sure there is.
Yeah, and it does. So if we'd be rewarded the $50,000 on July 1st, it doesn't expire. It just rolls over. And if they extend this program and they award us, $50,000 next year, it would just go into our bucket. We don't have to use it right away. So it's something that could just be out there as long as I report on it, like this is what we've done or have it done.
Did I miss it? What are they calling low income?
Yeah, she didn't really call it low income. It's for people that qualify under federal poverty guidelines, that she sent out a list of just a bracket of the income. So I think it came to like a family of 4 was under $39,000. It would pay for 100% of the cost of replacement for the septic system. And then 134 to 200, it would cover 85% of the cost.
Okay.
And this is going to be based on whoever's applying, the applicant's
Yeah, so-
sworn testimony, pretty much.
Yeah, well, they would have to deliver us like their tax return or pay stubs, and that's kind of where my concern was, is because I'm not an accountant. I can do the math for sure, but I know you can finagle tax returns to make it look like you don't earn money, and I don't want to approve somebody that doesn't qualify or somebody that should qualify, and we decline them, and then that puts the liability back on us.
Do we have other programs that we currently administer that require income verifications?
We have other opportunities that we could do in the past, like the CDBG grants that have the low to moderate income. It's a different type of program. But that's a lot larger of a project than what this would be, because you have to actually send out LMI surveys to every property owner, and then you have to have a certain percentage of those responses back. So a lot bigger program to receive some of those funds than what Justin has visited about with this one.
Gotcha.
So we've done the CDBG grant, but they were pushing money so fast. That was through the COVID couple of years there. Yeah, but that was a much simpler project, and we went through the audit process and we passed it. We had no issues afterwards, but there's really no other pass-through grant that would become similar to what Justin's talking about here.
So that's something you're gonna send a mailer out to everybody, or how are we gonna get them
yeah,
educated?
Well, yeah, we talked about a little bit of maybe putting it on Facebook or,
Okay.
the announcements or on our website. We just hadn't really decided. It was kind of a quick turnaround at first when we talked about it. We had like a 3-day deadline, and we're like, maybe we just need to hold off on this. And then she sent the email, said, hey, I got 50 grand if you want to apply for it, but this is what you got to do. And when I think I emailed Mr. Jeter, and he thought it might be a little above what we would normally do in the environmental office, but
Mr. Jeter, do you see any problems with that, some of that?
Bill Jeter, County Councilor. Everything the county does exposes us to some liability, some degree. I don't see anything extraordinary here.
Okay.
My only concern, not from a legal standpoint particularly, is does Justin have the manpower and time to do this project? If he does, I see some merit to it. And, we may get a year down the road and find out there's not much out there, and we may not be interested in continuing the program, or we might, but it'd be additional money to work with in the environmental office, so.
Okay.
With the sewer issue we have at the fair, would that, nope, won't qualify for that.
We jokingly talked about it.
Oh, so you did, okay.
Well, we just talked about a couple different things out at the fair. They have to be failed systems
Okay.
to be replacement, and then you have to meet that poverty level, which we would not qualify. The failed system, yes. The poverty level, no.
Okay,
Got it.
worth a try.
I think it makes sense, again, like Bill said, we can get the funding in, see if there's a need or not, so the application itself is still a federal application. It's not something we create, right?
it's something
So I guess, from the legal standpoint, I would say, they're filling out the application. If they want to lie on a federal form, I wouldn't suggest it, but I guess I don't know
Yeah,
why that would necessarily fall back on us if it's a federal form they're filling out and they want to lie.
Yeah, the application is a form I created.
Okay,
But-
And then they could turn in their tax return or pay stub. And
okay.
It would come with tax returns. Okay.
And as far as the contractors, is that something that's gonna be in there that, hey, it is a failed system?
Yes, I
Okay.
put that in there, and then we were going to request at least 2
Okay.
bids, so cousin John's not going to do it. We can pocket the money, but and that's what I send that to Jeter to make sure we cover all of our bases. But I tried to cover as much as I could in that.
Okay.
The process wouldn't really be much different than what we do now, other than we'd be have to report online, obviously, and then we would pay the contractor directly, so that would be a new account or however that works, but.
I have no questions.
I guess the other thing too is with a contractor doing it, they run into something else, just so we wipe ourselves away from any other obstructions that we may hit that would
Yeah, I
cause
was
an
gonna
issue.
speak with Mr. Jeter, how some kind of clause we put
Okay.
in there that if we pay this, and any extenuating would be on you, or just so it's worded properly. There is an agreement that they did send out that they have to sign where it says they'll take care of it for 10 years, and if they sell the home, they have to inform the next person, they have to keep it up to standards, so.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so go ahead, proceed with that. And
I think so.
You have enough
Go ahead.
manpower?
yeah, it wouldn't be much outside of our normal duties other than the paying for the contractors and a few extra forms, but we can handle that.
Okay. Next, landfill fees discussion.
Yes, so last Saturday, I had a gentleman come into the landfill. He brought some trash that he picked up on his property from just over the bridge on Hall Street between 48th and 52nd. He said that someone from the city had come to him and said he needed to clean it up. I'd noticed they were doing surveying stuff over there. So it's basically trash that is blown off of people coming out there, or maybe possibly blown out of the landfill. He didn't think he should have to pay for it. So I expressed to him I don't have the power to waive fees or anything like that. It would be less, it would be actually be $20. It'd be 2 minimum loads if we were to waive that. So I advised I would come here to see if that's something we could do for him for picking up the trash, because I don't believe it's his trash. It's just blowing trash from wherever, so.
I'm okay with it. I think it's a citizen doing a good deed and
Yeah,
it's fine with me.
I'm good with that.
Good with that, so.
I'm
okay.
good.
I'll let him know. That is all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You, Justin. Okay. Do you want to talk about the UTV, or Brendan, are you ready? Okay. UTV for the fire department.
On this, Darren Myers, County Fire Chief, on your screen here, just to show you what the item is. Last week, we were notified from the Kansas Forestry Service that the County Fire Department could receive a Polaris Ranger UTV for firefighting purposes used for the Ellis County Fire Department. That's a picture of it there. The Forestry Service has programs that they get prior military equipment, forestry equipment, and they pass it on to fire departments across the state. We've been on the list for a UTV, I'd estimate probably maybe up to 5 years ago. 4 years ago is when we've been on the list. A lot of the ones that they've got are very used, very rough, and not appropriate. Some of them just been actually ATVs, like a four-wheeler, which wouldn't do us a whole lot of good. This one came available early last week, and I discussed with the chief officers on the county as to, is this something that we should pursue? Overwhelmingly, yes, the concerns were, it's not really a concern, but it's not something that we're going to be using all the time. It's just another tool in the toolbox that would be available to us instead of putting some of the more expensive, top-heavy trucks down ravines, riverbeds, etc. This would be more agile to get into those local areas. Interesting enough, yesterday afternoon, we received a check from a gentleman from a fire that we had last week out north of town on Hilltop Avenue. They had a control burn that got out of hand, and he sent us a check for $1,500. So I guess the idea with the two items coming together, the first is I'm asking the commission that we accept the UTV from the Forestry Service. There is no fee except for us to run to Manhattan this week to pick it up. But I would suggest that after we do get it, we take it out to BOS Motorsports, have it ran through. It does need battery, potentially a new tire, but use that $1,500 to make the repairs for this, and to be able to put it in the fleet. Most of the time when they do get units that they send out to the local fire departments are military, and they have to be repainted. This one was not military, so we don't have to worry about that expense. And the other option that we were considering, and Gary left today, but I tried to call him last night in regards to, instead of buying a more expensive skid unit to put on the back with a 50-gallon tank and a pump, etc., is to see if they would, in their spare time, be able to rig up a system with a tank and a pump on it, similar to what they use for their noxious weed UTVs, and be able to use that and have a much cheaper solution to have another tool in the toolbox for the county fire department for different purposes. Like I say, it's not a need. It's just something that is available. It's free, and I think that was the overwhelming response from the chief officers was, why not? It's free. But that's the kind of the reason why we bring it here before you today is it's another vehicle to the fleet, which would add to our insurance costs next year, which would be very minimal. But if it does work out, it does become a good tool for the toolbox. When this one would be replaced, would we consider it to be replaced years down the road? So
Depends on if they give us another free one.
so these are becoming more popular. The Northwest Homeland Security Council has started to approve a project last year to start purchasing two UTVs per year for the 17 counties in the Northwest Homeland Security Council. We already have a UTV. It's a Gator that's used for different fairground purposes. It's a regional asset, so it gets borrowed. But this one would be dedicated specifically to the county fire department to be used for firefighting purposes, and not like the police use the one we have now for parades. The Fort Hays campus uses it for graduation ceremonies, homecomings. They use it at different fairgrounds throughout the region. Ness County and Rooks County use it quite a bit. So this would be dedicated. We could have that skid unit on it and keep it that way.
Yeah, you watch down in the southeastern part, southwest part, you see a lot of them on. Fire departments are going to that, especially the rural, like say where you can get to that, places with that, instead of taking our big trucks down in there. What year is it? I mean, that doesn't matter, but it was free, so.
I might be able to
Okay,
look through
that's
his
fine.
emails. One of the things I was visiting with Commissioner Liker about this last night was it'd be nice to know the series model too, because once we know that, it's not a big deal, but we can determine what type of load limits we can put on for whether we want to put a 30-gallon or a 50-gallon tank, and then possibly modify the back seat to put the tank in there for the lower center of gravity and better maneuverability into the pastures. Like I say, there will be some expenses that $1,500 would help cover. Not sure. I don't have a UTV, but I'm sure it's pretty pricey. The same as a vehicle taking it in for service. It needs a battery, and one of the tires is flat. But they said it would probably be better just to replace the two rear tires. So that'll probably use through that $1,500 donation pretty quick.
Yeah, that'll go
Yep.
quick, especially they're gonna probably want to change all the
Yeah.
gearbox oil and everything, so we know what we got. So it's dependable and we need it.
Okay.
And if we get it, we spend a couple $100 on service and it completely fails, we're out really nothing because a tank of gas to drive to Manhattan to pick it up.
Do we need to motion to approve it?
I don't necessarily think so. I just wanted to make sure that the commission is okay because of the budget, the very minimal budget impact that it would have.
Okay. I'm good with it.
I am too. That's good.
That's fine.
Good add to our fleet.
Okay. Well, do we want to move on to other reports? Do we want to take a 5-minute recess? I wouldn't mind taking 5 minutes.
I'd motion for a 5-minute recess to reconvene at 11:06.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. We'll reconvene at 11:06. Okay. Gentlemen, we tabled the discussion over the reclaimer, and he stepped out. I don't know if he stepped out on the phone.
Yeah, I tried to tell him to call him back again real quick just to see if he could get an answer and give us a few more minutes to maybe go through your commission reports.
Okay, well, start with our administrator report.
I'll pass it this morning. I had a great vacation. Thanks for allowing me to zoom in last week to the meeting.
Just had to stick that thumb in there, huh?
I believe you were out of the country on a beach somewhere about a
At
month
one
ago.
point. Yeah. Okay, commissioner reports. Commissioner Burgess?
Congrats to Sternberg on their 25-year anniversary of being at Under the Dome there. I went to their event on Friday for several things. They had a ribbon cutting and time capsule and stuff for kids and stuff, so that was a nice event to attend. And as Bobby keeps alluding to, it is an election day, so anybody that's still watching us, there is a presidential preference. I do encourage people to always do their civic duty and get out to vote, and this is an opportunity to do that. So,
Okay. Commissioner Younger?
Well, he's not in here, but I was going to wish Brandon a belated happy birthday, and then Jamie Summers, same thing, and then Michael Purvis, which he's a sheriff, his is on the 24th. Happy birthday to those. I also want to thank IT Lori. Yesterday we had a good time with the phone and the computer, but thank you for your expertise. And I was going to ask Bobby about the voting, but I already got that smile from her. So I also did attend the Lions Pancake Feed and had a lot of discussion there on the library issue, believe it or not. Then I also went to the Microfactory grand opening. Simpson, I went there. They're in business a long time. It seemed like they just opened, but and then I also did go to the Sternberg. And then I did have my quarterly meeting with the Northwest Kansas Juvenile and Corrections. So that's what I have, and I guess we won't be seeing everybody until the 2nd, but wish everybody a happy Easter, and hopefully we'll get some moisture.
Very good. Okay, well, I really have no report this time, so. Okay, we'll circle back to Brendan.
Still not able to get a hold of the salesman. I know he was out meeting with another county this morning. So tried him and the product service specialist that is traveling with them, because the product service specialist is coming up here this afternoon to go over our reclaimer, regardless of this decision, because we were having them come up and take a look over it before we started this project. So I can't say for them if they would leave it behind. I mean, if that's what we want, just table this until the 2nd, and we'll do what we have to do with what we have. I mean, we did it before, we can continue.
Have you already sent notification out for the people?
Yes, back March 1st when we were directed to by the chairman. Message board's out there, and we're prepped and ready to go. And there's no saying a new machine or an old machine is going to run forever or not break down. And Justin just had an O2 sensor fail on his enterprise truck he's had for a month and a half. Had to go in the shop for that. There's never a guarantee when you're working with heavy machinery and Mother Nature. So we could have this new machine and then get rained out all of April.
don't say that.
I hope you're right on that deal.
It can fall everywhere but that roof.
Not for those,
Not for the.
not for those residents.
I
They
know,
had to
not
wait.
for the residents, but just for the moisture.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen.
And that's what we dealing with Mother Nature and heavy machinery. There's no guarantee with anything. You can have the best plans in the world, but Mother Nature plays an effect, and machinery availability and uptime plays an effect.
So here's what I will suggest. I would go ahead and make the motion to approve the PO of this reclaimer. But we're withholding paying the balloon payment, and we're withholding the keys of our current reclaimer until the new one's here and on site and at work. And until this Ellis Avenue project is finished.
I don't know if I can commit to that without having spoken with him. Because I don't know if they already have someone lined up for the
Well,
resale of ours.
Here's the thing is, that motion gets us moving here on this piece, as it's already a slated, scheduled, purchase.
Yeah.
So that moves us forward in this direction because there's a machine on location or in Kansas City. So that will get it moving. They still have to have time to get it here and get it up to snuff and running. I don't want to see us push this because of a paperwork delay.
And you said they are coming up this afternoon?
The product specialist is.
Okay.
I had a class that started at 9 o'clock today, so I was going to have to miss a little bit to meet with him. But I might be missing most of my class today.
For clarification,
There is,
was it, I don't know if it was an official motion or just a suggested motion, but your motion is to approve the purchase of the new reclaimer pending that they will leave the current reclaimer in Ellis County as a spare throughout the month of April.
correct.
And I would agree that I don't know if Brendan could, there's none of us that could make that guarantee that they will approve that. So then, just to think forward, if we made that motion and it passed, and they would not allow the new reclaimer, or the old reclaimer to stay, what would be the suggested action from the commission?
Well,
Not to
You have to
repurchase the
come
new
back April
reclaimer?
2nd with some.
then we'll tell them, travel warranty and customer service agreement. So if it breaks down the new one, I guess hopefully they better be here. Like you say, anything man-made's able to break, mechanics, whatever, but
I'm trying to facilitate not
Mhm.
just the discussion, but how we can proceed if Caterpillar doesn't agree to those.
I think you'd have to bring it back on April 2nd then as a new agenda item and
and you're scheduled April 1st to go down there?
Yep.
So it wouldn't necessarily prolong or postpone the project because they could still use their current reclaimer out there. But it just prolong having possibly the new one.
Correct.
yeah.
And then it would increase the chance possibly of the current reclaimer having more mechanical issues.
Having a more critical phase.
Something else broke down, and then they would reduce the $305,000 trade-in if something
With it
breaks?
being under warranty, it should be covered and refreshed back to as is condition or prior condition.
That's something that we couldn't answer here today either, if they're gonna change their offer if something breaks, but.
There'd just be a bit of a delay because we're going to install different cutting teeth in the drum for going through asphalt. Commission had me purchase the specialty teeth last October when we brought this forward about doing this again. So we'll have a good portion of time tied up in changing the teeth over on our current machine and then taking them off and putting them on the new machine.
Well, I
Got a
suggest
couple.
you'd better twist their arm. They're doing it to us.
And the next thing is too, it could happen, that machine could leave.
Mhm.
And then we sit with ours and then it breaks down. If there's metal in there, we're all of us sitting in this room know that something's gonna happen.
Yep. And that's why they have those indicator metals in there. As things wear out, you have them in engines. If you do oil samples on engines or hydraulics, the reason you sample it is to show these pre-warning signs of an upcoming expense. So you can budget and plan for it. That's why we do sampling on all of our machines, warranty or not, so we can understand what's going on inside there without having to spend a lot of time and thousands of dollars to take things apart just to put them back together to see how much wear is in there. That's the benefit you pay for paying $35 for an oil sample versus a couple $1,000s for a thorough inspection. It gives you an idea of something going wrong and where you can inspect that component instead of doing a total disassembly of the entire machinery.
Well, hopefully our vendor would work with us if we do approve this, so we do
They have in the
that.
past, but I can't commit them
Right.
without.
Understand. And they know there's an issue with it. Are they gonna sell it that quick in case we would need a backup?
Maybe it'll go in their rental fleet.
Okay.
Well, I'll second the motion then.
There's a PO number on there, I'm supposing.
Okay, what was the motion?
7818.
That's the
I'll
motion.
just, like, I can do it.
What
I'll
was-
move to approve PO 7818 for the purchase of the 2024 Caterpillar RM 500B reclaimer from Foley Equipment
With the conditions.
With the conditions.
with the conditions that the, our present unit stays here, if that can be done with Foley
For the month of April, or for the entire length of the project.
Project.
project. If that can be swung. Because if they'll allow us, let's use both of them. If
Well,
they'll
I
allow,
mean-
if they will.
Yeah, I don't have the staff to
Right.
man both or equipment.
Yeah, that's
because of the
true.
water trucks.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I don't want to run that dry because it would just,
Okay.
I'll go.
yeah, that's one person, but we need some more equipment to go with it in order to do that.
So
Like I said-
I'll second that motion then, with the discussion again that, I guess if they don't approve those terms in our motion, then we'll have to bring this back up
Have to bring
then.
it back.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Brennan? Not again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, is there any other business we need to address before we close the meeting? Seeing none, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 11:17.